When the golden orb finally appeared in front of Arata, he thought his dream of becoming a slayer would come true. But before he could even touch it, his piece of shit father snatched it, claiming it would sell for a good amount of money. When his brother Ryu tried to protest, their bastard father kicked him so hard that he slammed into the wall. After his father left the house, he went to a man named Takatora and sold the golden orb for 30 million. Years passed. While Arata and Ryu were watching the news about a man who would save the world, the man bragged about his golden orb with a blue ring. They immediately recognized it because there's only one golden orb for each element in Japan, which meant that orb was surely Arata's. Of course, they went to confront him right away. When Ryu demanded that Takatora give his brother's orb back, Takatora played dumb and it pissed Ryu off. Having no choice, Takatora told them he would lead them to where the orb was and brought them into a room. That's when it dawned on them. They'd fallen into his trap. There was a magic fissure inside the room. Before they could get out, Takatora immediately locked them both inside. Suddenly, the fissure fired out a dark soul. And of course, like a good brother, Ryu pushed Arata away to save him. Ryu slowly turned, but before he fully transformed, he told Arata that he always believed in him. Then his brother turned into a massive four-armed ogre. Seeing this, Arata fell into despair, blaming it all on himself. But he didn't give up. He told himself it wasn't his fault. It was the selfish people who took everything from him. That's when the dark orb appeared, as if some entity had been listening. Without holding back, he stretches his hand toward the orb, and it merges with him, sending a wave of pain that comes with the transformation into his body. While shouting and trying to maintain his sanity, he sees a notification telling him that he has received the protection of the demon realm. In addition to this, he acquires some skills like the Blast Shadow Blade, the Blast Armor, and the Blast Flash. Meanwhile, Takatora is laughing and making fun of the two, and he talks about his plan to kill them to level up. Takatora boasts about his high status and the fact that the boys are nothing but peasants compared to him. To him, he has taken care of the problem, but little did he know that Arata was going through a tough transformation. When the pain finally subsides, it dawns on Arata that he might have absorbed the orb's power. He is still thinking about this when his already transformed brother comes charging at him. He almost crushes Arata, but Arata finds himself moving before the blow can even reach him. Arata realizes that he somehow dodged the blow instinctively, and his body even feels very light. He also notices that there is a status screen in front of him, showing his level, status number, skills, and even an HP bar. Since everything is new to him, he doesn't know if he has become a slayer or not. He is still thinking about all of these when his brother comes charging at him again. Arata screams at the top of his voice, trying to tell his brother not to be consumed by the power of the dark energy. Arata assures his brother that he is going to save him, because it is finally his turn to do so. Arata refuses to move, and just as the beast is about to reach him, it suddenly stops. It lets off a frustrating scream before breaking the wall behind them and escaping through there. Arata is shocked to see this, and he realizes that there might still be some sense of his brother left in him because he just suddenly stopped attacking and ran away. It dawns on Arata that his brother will be killed by the Slayers if they find him. He figures out that the best thing he needs to do is find his brother before they do. Suddenly, a magic fissure appears in front of him, and a terrifying beast appears from inside the crack. The beast doesn't hesitate as it tries to slash Arata and skewer him. Arata jumps backward, dodging the beast's punch, which leaves devastating destruction in its wake. Arata is still trying to get a read of the situation when the beast hits him with its tail. Arata is sent flying, and he crashes into the wall. Pain overwhelms his body with the realization that the beast is not to be toyed with. Arata concludes that he needs to defeat the beast fast so he can go after his brother. Just then, it dawns on him that he has acquired some skills, like the Blast Shadow Blade, the Blast Armor, and the Blast Flash, which are all still on level 1. Realizing that he is also a slayer, Arata is filled with the confidence to stand his ground against the attacking beast. Just as the beast charges toward him, Arata unleashes the Blast Flash. This unleashes a dark energy that sends the beast flying. Arata is still trying to take a break when the beast comes charging at him again. Before he knows it, he gets slammed into the wall, and he starts to lose control of his body. Arata cannot believe that he just achieved what he has always wanted to. But he is suddenly about to die. He wonders if he is going to die without doing anything meaningful, which includes saving his brother. Just as the beast is about to reach him, Arata enters the flow state, with a dark purple aura swirling around him. He opens his eyes, and it burns bright like that of a vampire. Out of nowhere, the beast gets hit with several projectiles, causing it to scream in pain. Arata passes out, and when he opens his eyes, he sees the beast lying dead in front of him with several weapons sticking out of its body. Arata is shocked to see this as he starts to wonder if he really defeated the beast. He has no idea what just happened to him, and the system notifies him that he has reached level 3. Arata realizes that he leveled up because he beat the beast, which basically means his stats have gotten better. However, He forgets about getting stronger or not and decides to focus on finding his brother. He gets on his feet and steps onto the street, looking battered. Takatora crosses his mind, and Arata's rage burns brighter with the determination that he is never going to forgive the dude for what he did. Suddenly, he loses the remaining strength in him, and he passes out on the streets. Meanwhile, Takatora has gone back to the room to check if the brothers are dead, only to find a broken wall and destruction everywhere. Takatora cannot believe his eyes when he sees this because there is no way he expects the brothers to be able to escape his grasp. Later on, Arata wakes up from memories he shared with his brother. He looks around to find himself in a strange environment, which happens to be an infirmary. The last thing he remembers is going to the Goto building and fighting a beast. Suddenly it dawns on him that he has a brother who has turned into a beast, and he needs to save him. Arata is about to get off the bed when a nurse suddenly appears in the room carrying some medical items and telling Arata that he needs to stay on the bed. Arata stutters, not knowing what to say, and the nurse reveals that they got a call that he collapsed on the roadside. She points out his injuries, which he sustained from fighting the beast. Arata had totally forgotten this, but the nurse's words jerked up his memory again. Arata then asks the nurse where he is, and the lady replies that he is in a Slayer relief station. The nurse adds that she is not new to things like this because rookie Slayers tend to overthink things in their first fight, which lands them in the hospital. Arata is surprised to find himself in a relief station, and he starts wondering who could have brought him there. The nurse then tells Arata to join a guild and get himself a Slayer badge. She is about to continue explaining the perks that come with joining a guild when Arata cuts her short, telling her that there is somewhere he needs to be. The nurse screams at him like his mummy, telling him that he can't be moving around just yet because he needs to rest. Arata then lies back on the bed, and the nurse soon leaves, urging him to wait for her. The moment the nurse leaves, Arata gets off the bed and walks to the door. At the door, he hears some dudes talking about the magic beast that appeared near the Goto building. Arata figures out that the beast they are talking about is his brother. He also hears them talking about how an unidentified Slayer is accompanying him. The dudes reveal that it is going to be a problem for them to handle the beast if it ends up entering a magic fissure. Arata immediately figures out that the guild is hunting his brother down, and it is not going to be long before they hunt him down and kill him. Arata immediately figures out that he needs to find his brother quickly. The nurse returns to the room only to see that Arata has disappeared via the window. Arata runs through the street with the worry that his brother is going to be sent to the afterlife. He remembers them talking about a magic fissure, and he figures out that his brother might be trapped in one. Since this is the case, Arata decides that he has to check out every possible magic fissure in the area. Suddenly, he hears an announcement on the phone telling him that a magic fissure has appeared in the Asagi area and civilians are advised to evacuate. Because of the timing, Arata decides to check it out. He reaches where the crack is and learns that it is of a low rank, the bronze rank. He realizes that a barrier has also been put around it, which means someone from the association has gotten there, but there is no presence of a Slayer yet. Since this is his first time entering a magic fissure, he is a bit nervous and scared, but he gets over this with the realization that he needs to save his brother. The moment he steps in, the system is notified that there is someone trying to clear the magic fissure. Arata is blown away when he sees what the inside of the fissure looks like. It looks like a desert, which is totally different from the outside world. Since he has no idea where his brother can be, he decides that he needs to go deeper. Suddenly, he gets a mission notification telling him to defeat the boss to clear the fissure. Since there's a boss in the fissure, he figures out that it will be in the deepest part of the fissure. However, he knows that he will encounter other beasts on the way, and the question of whether he can defeat them or not rings in his head. Momentarily, a level 3 beast appears in front of him. He remembers defeating a beast the day before, but he doesn't really know. Nonetheless, he figures out that he has no choice but to fight the beast. He taps into his skill list and whips out the Shadow Blade. Arata is glad that he is able to pull it off. The beast charges toward Arata, but he blocks the monster's bite with his Shadow Sword. Arata struggles against the beast as he grits his teeth, trying to gather his strength together. Arata ends up getting pushed backwards by the beast. Arata finally realizes what it means to go against monsters. He's been training with his brother, but this tells him that it barely makes a difference against monsters. Nonetheless, he pulls himself together and he blitzes the beast, cutting it into bits. After defeating the monster, he gets the notification that he has jumped from level 3 to level 5. Before he can get a breather, a pack of monsters appears right in front of him, sending a wave of fear through his body. Arata cannot believe that a bronze rank dungeon is able to produce such a high number of monsters. Arata is left to wonder if he can actually take on all of the monsters if they come at him at the same time. Instead of allowing the fear of this to cripple him, Arata was poised to take on the monsters. He is convinced that he has a chance against the monsters if he can use the broken skill he used the day before. The moment the monsters come running at him, Arata realizes that he is done for because he doesn't even know how to use the overpowered skill. Just as he is about to be overrun, massive firepower appears and consumes the monsters. Arata is shocked, and he hears a voice behind him, asking him about the nature of the skill that he just used. Instead of answering the question, Arata is blown away by the overwhelming firepower that he just witnessed. The unknown dude stares at Arata like he is a threat, and he reveals that he got a call from the association about an unidentified slayer, and judging by what he just saw, he assumes that Arata is the said slayer. Arata takes a look at the dude, and he figures out that he is a golden slayer who possesses the fire attribute. The new dude is Ryo Kuji, and he is a member of the Lion Flame Guild. He is accompanied by two other slayers, Shu Makishima and Hayato Akagi, who are both silver-ranked slayers. Arata wonders why the dude is there since he is one of the 5 great kings. Some of the beasts disrupt the conversation, and Ryo angrily burns them to dust with just a snap of his finger, leaving a cloud of fire behind him just so he can aura farm in front of our MC. This gets to Arata, who is witnessing the power of a golden slayer for the first time. Ryo walks up to him as he talks about the unusual number of monsters that are present in the fissure, since it is a bronze rank fissure. Ryo points to Arata's shadow sword, asking him what his skill is. This question hits Arata out of nowhere since he has been wondering what his skill is. He only knows that the skill is not part of the 5 main attributes, but he doesn't know what it is. Ryo gets even more curious, saying Arata is a weird person who is also wielding a weird skill. With a stern face, Ryo asks him what he is doing inside the fissure. Arata figures out that he obviously cannot say he is looking for his brother because they are just going to mark him for subjugation too. Arata decides that he is just going to ignore the question and continue moving. Arata turns around, thanking Ryo for his help, while walking away. Basically, orbs are like a wish or prayer, since they resonate with one's strength to produce an attribute closest to the user. This is common knowledge, but Ryo sees no sign of that in Arata. Ryo then stops him, saying he has finally figured out that he is the irregular slayer that they are talking about. Arata stops to argue with Ryo, telling him that he has no idea what he means by an irregular slayer. Arata says he needs to go, but Ryo lets him know that he has been ordered by the association to bring him in for questioning. Ryo urges Arata not to take it personally as he charges at him with a fiery punch. Just as the fire blast is about to hit, Arata covers his head with his sword to block the incoming attack. Arata is left in shock when his shadow is burnt away by Ryo's overwhelming firepower. Even Ryo is shocked to see that the sword burned away. Arata is forced to put some distance between himself and Ryo, but Ryo is not yet done with him. Ryo tells his subordinates not to interfere as he is starting to enjoy himself against Arata. The two acknowledge the order, but at the same time, they are scared they will be reduced to nothing if Ryo gets serious in his fight against Arata. Ryo doesn't waste time before releasing a new wave of fireballs at Arata. Arata realizes that he is in serious danger, and he runs behind a rock to hide from the impact of the fire. When the fire subsides, Ryo grins and tells Arata to surrender to avoid being turned into ashes. While hiding behind the rock, Arata figures out that he is never going to see his brother if he gets caught by Ryo. Just then, Ryo leaps into the air, and he launches a powerful fireball that has tracking ability toward Arata. Realizing that hiding won't save him, Arata jumps away from where he is, and he manages to dodge the hit at the nick of time. Ryo stands proud, telling Arata that hiding won't help him. While Ryo is laughing and making fun of him, Arata frantically searches through his skill list to find something that might help him against the crazy Fire Lord Ozai, who is after him. Arata manages to find a skill that he believes will come in clutch. Arata then gets on his feet, and from his stance, Ryo can sense that something is different about him. Arata stretches his hands forward, and Ryo lets him know that whatever he wants to do is useless against him. Just as usual, Ryo hurls a barrage of fireballs at Arata. Just as the fireballs are about to reach Arata, he activates his power and consumes the fireballs. This leaves a toll on him, but he remains standing, and Ryo figures out that Arata is not just some pushover. However, Ryo shows him some really cool and powerful firepower, and he urges Arata to surrender to avoid death. Arata unleashes a longer shadow sword while telling Ryo that his brother is waiting for him and he can't be caught. The mention of the word brother gets to Ryo, causing him to lose concentration. This gives Arata the chance to leap toward him. By the time Ryo comes back to his senses, Arata is already in the air, leaping toward him with his sword. At the nick of time, Ryo is able to block the attack with the armor on his wrist. He manages to hold his ground, but he notices that something has changed in Arata. After a short standoff, Arata backs off and, without any further conflict, tells Ryo that he needs to leave. Ryo is stunned by this, and just then, he tells Arata that he will need to defeat the boss if he is sure that he has someone he needs to protect. Arata is shocked when he realizes that Ryo is actually talking to him. Ryo continues by telling Arata that he needs to level up faster and urges him to stop being reckless because he is just going to burn out faster. Arata smiles and thanks Ryo for the advice before running off. Ryo watches as Arata runs away, and he wears an excited smile like a proud father. His subordinates run over to tell him that they have taken care of the beasts in the area, but Ryo simply replies that Arata is a fiery kid. The two are shocked to see that Ryo is smiling, which points to the fact that he is in a good mood. Meanwhile, at the Navy Guild, they get a report of another magic fissure. The guildmaster then sends one of her silver slayers, Aoi Ichika, to clear the fissure. Unlike everyone else, Ichika is excited to go into battle, and it is written all over her face. Later on, Arata was forced to exit the fissure because someone defeated the boss, and he figured out that it was Ryo. Even before the fissure was cleared, Arata had looked around, but there was no sign of his brother anywhere. Arata sees an announcement on the news, telling everyone to make a report if they see the magic beast. Seeing this, Arata figures out that he can't rely on anyone to help him, and he has no choice but to just do everything by himself. Just then, he gets the alert that another magic fissure is opening in District 4. As usual, the residents in the area get a notification warning on their phones, urging them to leave the affected area. Since the district is close to where he is, Arata figures out that he needs to check it out. He runs toward the affected area, hoping that other slayers do not show up before him. He gets there to see that it is a bronze-ranked fissure. Since the fissure hasn't been cleared yet, Arata hopes that his brother is inside the fissure. Just as he is about to step into the fissure, two dudes from the Navy Guild, Hanameda and Ishinari, show up, telling him that the fissure is off limits. Things get more intense when the two realize that Arata has no badge. They waste no time trash-talking him, calling him a low-level who couldn't join a guild. They call him a normal slayer, and in the ranks of slayers, a normal slayer is at the bottom, while a gold-ranked slayer is the highest. Arata is utterly blown away by the nerves on the two, and he wonders just who they are. The two continue blabbing, and they reveal that their master will be the one to clear the fissure. Because of this, they tell Arata that no one else is allowed to enter, especially trash like Arata. Arata is confused by what the two are talking about, and he lets them know that he has a reason why he needs to go into the fissure fast. The two tell Arata that they don't give a damn what Arata's reason is because they are not going to allow him to enter. They take it a step further when they attack Arata. Arata manages to move before he gets hit. He maintains a passive stance while telling the two that he is in a hurry. However, Arata finally decides to show them what pain is when he realizes that they are not going to back off. He arms himself with the Shadow Blade and dashes toward the two, ready to show them what pain really is. Suddenly, he realizes that he can't move his feet, and when he looks down, he is stuck by a mud trap set by the annoying dudes. Before he knows it, he starts sinking into the mud, and he soon learns that it is bottomless, and he is going to die if he doesn't find a way to get out. Arata can only stare at the two with no way to get out. Just then, they hear a voice from behind asking the two bullies what they are doing to Arata. They turn around, and the voice turns out to be Aoi Ichika. The two are shocked to see the lady, as she is not supposed to be there. Aoi wastes no time turning to Arata to save him, using her power. She lifts Arata out of the mud, using a water wave. Aoi then asks why slayers like themselves are fighting each other. Still struggling to catch his breath, Arata tells Aoi that Hanameda and Ishinari are preventing him from entering the fissure. Aoi has heard of slayers who enter fissures before proper investigations, so that they can conquer them themselves and take all the rewards for themselves. And looking at the two, she figures out that they are part of the said slayers. The two figure out that Aoi is going to be a problem, and they decide to stop her no matter what. They are confident that they can overpower her since she is just a support slayer. The two don't hesitate before unleashing their ice powers at her, but Aoi creates a barrier to protect herself and Arata. After deflecting the first wave, Aoi turns to Arata, telling him to fight the two while she supports him. Arata is shocked to hear this since he has never fought anyone before, but since they have no choice, he decides to do it. Aoi thanks him for his cooperation, and she unleashes one of her skills, Merlin Schnell. This immediately buffs Arata up, and he can sense the effect of the skill as it leaves his entire body light, different from before. Aoi assures him that fighting will be much easier than before, so he is free to take down the delinquents while she supports him with her skills. Arata gladly accepts, and he runs toward the two at a blinding speed. The two are shocked since Arata is now faster than before, and before they can react, Arata hits them with his Soot Slayer blade. With just a single strike, he takes them down. Arata doesn't feel any blowback on him, even after what he just did, and when he checks his stats, he realizes that they have shot up. Aoi screams at him, asking him if he slashed the two, but Arata lets her know that he only hit them with the back of his blade. Aoi is relieved to hear this, but she is not pleased that dudes from her guild are out embarrassing themselves. Arata notices the Water Slayer badge on her chest, and he figures out that she is also from Takatora's guild. The two finally get down to introductions, and Aoi admits that Arata is decently strong. Before the two can have any further conversation, they hear the two bullies get on their feet to run away. While running away, they mention the name of their said master, which turns out to be Takatora. This catches Arata's attention, and Aoi also gets interested. She reveals her plan to tell the guildmaster, Rei, about what Takatora is doing behind their backs. After the bullies are gone, Aoi reminds Arata that they need to clear the fissure. Arata is hesitant, but Aoi lets him know that the guild members will be arriving soon. However, she can still fight alongside him until then, since she has Rei's permission to clear the fissure. Arata is genuinely confused when he hears this. Aoi then tells him that it is better they team up because of the reports that lower-rank fissures have been displaying abnormal features. In addition to this, Aoi is a support slayer, and Arata remembers that Aoi's earlier buff was actually broken. He finally gets the chance to thank the lady, and Aoi asks him again if he is willing to clear the fissure with her. Since the offer is too good to pass up, Arata decides to agree to it. Excited by their latest cooperation, the two enter the fissure with the aim of clearing it. Upon entering the fissure, Arata is shocked to see that it is totally different from the last one. It is more like a cave with scary spots everywhere. Aoi lets him know that the insides of a fissure are a different dimension, which is why they don't usually know what kind of place it will be. Aoi suggests that they be careful, and Arata acknowledges this. As they walk further, Arata starts to realize that there is no sign of a magic beast, and in addition to this, his big brother is nowhere to be found. Arata wasn't expecting to easily see his brother, but since he has been blessed with the opportunity of entering the fissure with a silver-ranked slayer, he plans to learn how to properly fight while also leveling up. Momentarily, they run into a level 5 goblin that looks like it is hungry to use their blood as a cocktail. Arata remembers that he struggled with a goblin the day before, even though they are considered to be the weakest among the magic beasts. Without hesitation, Arata goes after the goblin and cleanly removes its head. Arata is still smiling about defeating the goblin when an entire army of them shows up. Fear grips Arata when he sees just how many of them there are. He wonders if he actually has what it takes to defeat the goblins. Just then, he is buffed up by Aoi, and this increases his stats as usual. Aoi smiles at him from behind, telling him to show the goblins who is the boss. Arata gladly follows Aoi's instructions as he cuts down the goblins without mercy. After defeating the goblin troops, he moves from level 5 to 6. Aoi commends him for the good work, telling him that it should be easy to handle bronze rank beasts with her around. Arata agrees with her, telling her that his body is surging with power, and Aoi boasts about this, telling Arata that she is called the linchpin of rear support in their guild. Suddenly, Arata senses an ominous presence behind them. He screams at Aoi, telling her that there is danger behind her. A goblin is reaching toward her, ready to slash her down, but Aoi's shield is able to block the attack. Aoi then turns around, and with anger written all over her, blasts the goblin away. Arata is blown away when he sees how Aoi is able to combine multiple skills in a matter of seconds, which just shows how experienced she is. In addition to being agile, she can also provide support to anyone with her. Aoi notices that Arata is lost in his thoughts, and she calls him out of his zone, reminding him that they need to keep moving. Arata already sees Aoi as an idol, and he plans to level up so he can be as strong as her. Arata voices out his wish of being able to protect people just like she does. Aoi smiles, letting him know that his dream is good. However, she tells him that he will have to defeat the goblins that have surrounded them. This is when Arata realizes that they are in the midst of a goblin army. He wonders just how many goblins he has to fight, but he notices that Aoi is calmer than ice. Just like before, Aoi buffs him up, telling him to take down the goblins. Arata appreciates the support that he is getting from Aoi, and this provides a sense of determination inside him. He goes after the goblins, and he starts cutting them down without mercy. As he is relieving the goblins of their vital parts, he is also leveling up. In no time, Arata has taken down the entire army of goblins that was surrounding them. The notification then comes in, telling him that he has jumped from level 6 to level 10. Arata is surprised to see this, but in reward for reaching level 10, Arata unlocks another skill, the Blast Cannon. However, his excitement about getting a new skill dies off when a new batch of goblin monsters shows up. This time around, they came with a larger force that even sent chills down Aoi's body. Aoi tells Arata that the only chance they have against the goblins is to attack them first. Aoi lets Arata know that his skill is weird, but she asks if he can attack from range, because if he can't, they are just going to get overrun. Talking about a range attack, Arata remembers that he just got a new skill, the Blast Cannon. He realizes that the skill is for situations like this. Arata selects the skill and he fires the cannon at the goblins. With just a single blast of magical energy from his palm, he takes out a few of the goblins. However, Arata doesn't stop there as he continues firing the cannon, and before he knows it, he has wiped out the entire goblin army. Aoi turns to look at him, and she smiles. Arata knows what this means, and he is glad that he was able to live up to Aoi's expectations. Aoi then suggests that they head to the boss's chambers, and Arata doesn't object. Just then, he gets the notification that he has moved to level 12. Momentarily, they arrive at the deepest part of the cave, and Aoi tells Arata that she can sense the boss inside the dark cave. She urges Arata to be careful as they proceed further. Arata is nervous because it is his first time, but his duty to protect the girl with him is able to overcome his fear. They soon find the boss in its chambers, and it turns out to be a scary level 15 ogre. The beast gets off its throne and mumbles some words in magic beast language, but Arata doesn't understand any of it. Without further delay, the magic beast releases powerful lightning from its staff. Aoi steps up and tells Arata to leave the blast to her. Using one of her skills, she creates a shield to block the attack, but she can only hold it for a short period of time before getting thrown to the ground. Aoi is shocked at the intensity of the lightning, since it was supposed to be a bronze rank boss. The boss fires another lightning attack, and Aoi lets Arata know that they are never going to get close if the boss keeps firing off attacks. Aoi lets Arata know her plan of guarding against the attacks, while Aoi launches a counterattack. Arata notices that Aoi is struggling, but Aoi urges him not to worry about her. The idea of getting protected by someone all the time pisses Arata off, and he charges at the ogre while it is busy shooting long-range attacks at Aoi. Once he is in a perfect position, he aims at the ogre and he fires the blast cannon at it. Arata's attack manages to destroy the ogre's weapon, taking away its ability to fire off long-range attacks. Aoi celebrates when Arata pulls this off, but the ogre is not pleased, and he throws his destroyed weapon at Arata. The sudden and unexpected throw from the ogre leaves Arata clearly open to the attack. He tries to move, but he realizes just in time that he is not going to make it. Before he even gets the chance to move, the weapon cuts through his body. Arata spills blood from his mouth as he crashes to the ground. Aoi doesn't hesitate before rushing over to him to check on him. She creates a shield around them and she starts healing Arata, using another of her skills. In no time, the wound on his body starts to close up, and Arata coughs before finally being able to sit. Aoi lets him know that what she just did is first aid, and she asks him if he can still move. Arata thanks her for the assist, and assures her that he can still move. The two are shocked when the ogre starts charging at them again. Arata cannot believe that such a big creature is pretty agile, and it is heading straight toward them. The ogre aims to punch them into the ground as he swings his arm at them, but Aoi's barrier manages to block it. She struggles against the ogre's power, and Arata realizes that they might as well be done for if they can't take down the ogre as fast as they can. Arata pays attention and realizes that there is a small opening on the ogre's neck that its armor doesn't cover. He figures out that aiming for the spot will help him take down the ogre. Just like before, Aoi keeps the ogre busy while Arata tries to get in the perfect position. This time around, the ogre senses what he is about to do, and it changes his attention from Aoi. He swings a punch at Arata, and just as he is about to get hit, Arata gets a perfect opening to the ogre's neck, and he fires his cannon straight at it. This hurts the ogre, forcing it to its knees, and Aoi screams at Arata, telling him to finish off the ogre. Arata whips out his shadow blade with the determination that he doesn't want to be protected all the time. Before he swings his sword, Aoi doesn't just sit around, as she provides some juice for him. Arata smiles when he receives the power-ups from Aoi. Arata runs at the ogre and leaps into the air while putting his all into the swing. The power from the swing is able to decapitate the ogre and leave it headless. Blood spills everywhere as the ogre loses to our MC. Arata stares into the roof of the cave, and he gets the notification that he is leveled up once again. Aoi smiles as she rushes over to Arata while raising her hand for a high five. Arata is pleased and surprised at the same time, but he returns the gesture. Since the boss has been defeated, the fissure starts to collapse and the two run out before they become casualties in the fissure. The two barely make it out of the fissure before it disperses. Arata realizes that he didn't find his brother, but he manages to get stronger. He is thinking about this when he falls to his knees from exhaustion. Aoi notices that the dude is badly hurt, and she grabs his hand, telling him to follow her. Arata wonders if he is being dragged to the infirmary yet again. Instead of the infirmary, Aoi takes him to the Navy Guild building. She takes him to the waiting room and gives him some clothes that he can change into. She then steps out, telling Arata that she needs to make a report first. 15 minutes later, Arata wonders why the girl is taking so long. He decides to step outside the room to see what is happening. Just as he leaves the room, a girl running toward him trips over and almost falls, but Arata helps her up. Arata is about to get familiar with her when he realizes something important. Arata quickly ends whatever conversation of love life that might want to start developing, and he runs toward the entrance. After helping the girl, it dawns on him that she is the guildmaster of the Navy Guild, and Arata cannot afford to let her question him. Rei, on the other hand, wonders why the dude is running away from her. She shrugs this off and heads to the conference room where Aoi is waiting for her. Rei gladly welcomes her back, but Aoi cuts the whole familiarity and lets her know that there is something she needs to tell her. She immediately pours out her frustration about what Takatora is doing behind their backs. Rei is forced to tell her to calm down as she continues venting. Aoi then calms down to explain the situation to Rei. Aoi then tells Rei that Takatora has been using fissures to his advantage. Rei is surprised to hear this, and she decides that she will have to deal with him by herself. However, she is still worried about Arata, whom she ran into earlier. The next day, Arata considers himself lucky to have gotten away from Rei, while praying that she doesn't suspect him. He is walking through an alley when he sees some slayers struggling against a magic beast while trying to protect a kid beside him. The magic beast is a two-headed monster with firepower, but Arata doesn't hesitate as he dashes toward the magic beast. Arata reaches the monster, and with a powerful punch imbued with his shadow power, he breaks the beast's fire attack. The slayer, who was protecting the kid, is shocked to see such a powerful fellow, leaving him to wonder if he is a slayer. Arata doesn't waste the opportunity to ore a farm, and he whips out his long shadow sword. The slayer is shocked to see this since he hasn't seen that type of power before. Arata is now face to face with the beast while protecting the kids. The beast runs at Arata, but he maintains a perfect thrusting position, and with just a strike, he cuts down the terrifying beast. Unknown to him, he is being watched by a slayer who has somewhat taken an interest in Arata. At Japan's headquarters of the Slayers Association, the 5 kings are present for a meeting. From the Seiwa Guild is Jinosuke Doju, Ryokuji from Leon Flame Guild, Rei Isaki from Navy Guild, Takuto Nagihara from Jade Sky Guild, and Shion Inamori from Kaizen Guild. Doju addresses them and points out the first thing on their agenda, which is the unusual number of fissures that have been appearing everywhere. Ryo agrees with him, saying a bronze rank went out of control recently, which ended up releasing a bunch of magic beasts. Rei adds that there are also cases where bosses show up in the fissures, and they are stronger than the rank that they have assigned to them. Ryo doesn't really care if they are abnormal, as he sees it as a normal training regimen for the Slayers. Takuto smiles when he hears Ryo's perspective on the matter, saying Ryo is way more careless about it. This gets on Ryo's nerves, and he angrily stands up to berate Takuto. Ryo claims that his guild has done more than Takuto's guild, but Takuto remains calm while ignoring Ryo until he returns to his seat. Since the incident has only been happening recently, Rei wonders what the problem might be. Doju says there might be something changing on the side of the magic beasts, which is causing the unusual spikes in fissure emergence. However, he lets his comrades know that whatever the change is, it is going to lead them to the truth. He tells them to report any minor change to him, and they all acknowledge the order. After this, Doju moves to the subject of the irregular slayer, who has been going from one fissure to another without registering as a proper slayer. Doju says no one knows his reason for doing this, but he suspects that the change is not happening only to magic beasts, but to slayers also. Rei then tells her comrades that someone like the described slayer showed up at her guild, and Aoi mentioned that his skill was totally different from what she knew. But before Rei could get to talk to him, he disappeared. Meanwhile, Takuto is the dude who was watching Slayer from a rooftop, but he decides not to share anything with his comrades. Rei then tells her colleagues that the unidentified Slayer might believe that his skill is unique and different, which is why he doesn't belong in any guild. When Rei comes up with this observation, Takuto cuts in, saying that there is a possibility that Arata is a magic beast. Ryo immediately shuts him up, telling him to stop saying trash while defending Arata. Rei is shocked to see that Ryo has met him, and Ryo doesn't hide it anymore. He tells them that the kid is pretty strong, but there is no way he is a magic beast. Takuto then laughs when he hears this, and he reveals that he was just messing around. Doju then tells his comrades that the order to capture Arata is optional, since they don't have the proof to issue a warrant for his arrest yet. Shion finally speaks, and she tells her comrades that since Arata is not ready to come in, they have no reason to obsess over him. After giving her first opinion in the meeting, Shion stands up to leave just like the baddie that she is. She claims that she has a tea meeting that she needs to attend. She gets to the door and notices the camera sitting at the top. She has no idea what it is, but unknown to her and to the rest of the team, Takatora is the one watching them using the camera that he has carefully placed in the room. From what Takatora has seen, he realizes that Arata is a concern to the 5 kings, and he thinks of capturing him so his influence within the association can increase. In addition to this, there will be no more chaos, and he would have killed 2 birds with just 1 stone. He figures out that he needs information if he is going to capture the irregular. With the information he has, he believes that Arata has acquired the unique skill of light, while his brother has undergone a magic beast transformation. With these 2 factors in place, Takatora figures out where Arata will appear next. He gets up from his seat and decides that he needs to take care of Arata before it is too late. Later on, Arata finds people running away from a magic fissure, but he runs toward it instead. Just as he is about to reach the fissure, he is intercepted by Takatora, who is fully dressed in Slayer's armor while wearing an annoying smile. Takatora mocks Arata for his determination to hang on to life, but he lets him know that he is there to grab him and take him back to the association. He urges Arata to follow him quietly, but Arata screams at him not to get in his way. Takatora makes fun of Arata about his brother turning into a magic beast and running around. Takatora laughs in Arata's face while telling him that he is going to kill his brother. Rage takes over Arata, and he fires off his burst cannon at Takatora. Takatora doesn't look scared as the attack comes flying at him, and he easily consumes Arata's attack with just a single shot. Arata is shocked, but he refuses to back down as he whips out his Shadow Blade. He dashes toward Takatora, but he is just too slow for Takatora. Takatora unleashes a long-range attack to try to consume Arata. Arata is forced to use his sword to block the attack, but he fails to stand up to the full power of the attack, and he is thrown to the ground in pain. Takatora doesn't waste time making fun of Arata, telling him that his power is only unique because it's never been heard of before, but it is pretty weak. Arata manages to crawl back up while wondering what might be wrong since he is supposed to have leveled up his burst cannon and blazing Shadow Blade. He starts wondering if he cannot win against a Golden Slayer no matter what he does. Even in the face of defeat, Arata still manages to get on his feet. Takatora is surprised to see that the kid still has some strength left in him. Arata then unleashes a skill called Soot Darkness, and this creates a black smoke. Takatora doesn't move from where he is as he believes that Arata is creating nothing more than a smoke screen. He wonders what Arata is trying to do, but suddenly, a shadow attack comes flying at his neck. He barely manages to block it with his powers, and he angrily cuts away further strange attacks that might be coming for him. When the smoke clears a bit, he sees Arata charging toward him. Arata almost cuts him down, but Takatora easily blocks the hit. Arata lets him know that he has reached the end of the line, but Takatora argues with him, telling him that he will continue growing until he becomes one of the 5 kings. In addition to this, he wants to seize the Navy Guild while gaining total control of the association. Arata argues with him, telling him that he is not going to stand around and let it happen since he is not someone who is fit to be one of the 5 kings. Takatora knocks Arata backwards while telling him to stay in his place, which is among the low lives. Takatora whips out his ice blade, telling Arata his plan to sacrifice him with it. He makes fun of Arata, telling him that his sword is no match for his. But Arata painfully replies that the orb Takatora is using originally belonged to him. Arata says his big brother would still be human if Takatora hadn't stolen the orb. Arata angrily unleashes a dark aura from his body when he remembers that Takatora is to blame for everything that has happened so far. Arata angrily dashes at Takatora, and he tries to slash him, but he blocks it. Takatora notices that Arata has gotten a bit more powerful than before, but even with this, he thinks he is no match for him. Takatora pushes Arata backwards while urging him to come quietly. Takatora shows how deadly he can be when he unleashes a powerful skill, the Ice Emperor's Prison. The entire area freezes up, and Arata finds himself trapped in ice. Arata's movement is restricted, and Takatora unleashes powerful icicles to finish him off. With no way to dodge the attack, Arata is knocked out cold. Takatora still makes fun of him for falling unconscious from an attack that is not even his best. He points his sword at Arata, ready to finish him off so he can tell the association whatever lie he wants. Just as he is about to kill him, he gets hit with an ice attack that stops him. This shocks him, and when he turns around, he sees Rei and Aoi staring at him disgustingly. Rei mentions how Takatora has been causing trouble, and she asks him why he is fighting in public during the day. Takatora is shocked to see the guildmaster, and she reveals that she has been watching him. Rei now sees that Takatora tends to do whatever he likes whenever she is not there. Takatora tries to justify what he did by saying Arata is an irregular, but Rei lets him know that this doesn't give him the right to beat him up. Aoi moves over to Arata to help him, and in his weak state, Arata sees Rei, and he recognizes her from the guild. Aoi uses her skill on Arata, and she heals him. Arata finally opens his eyes to see Aoi beside him, leaving him surprised. He tries moving, but Aoi urges him not to because his wounds will only reopen. Arata shows his hatred for Takatora by screaming out that he will never forgive him, but after saying this, he passes out. Takatora then tells the girls that they will be going against the association if they plan to heal Arata and take him under their wings. Rei then tells Takatora that the association has not filed an arrest order yet. Since this is the case, she plans to request the go-ahead to put him under Navy Guild surveillance. Takatora wants to argue, but Rei urges him not to, telling him that she and Aoi will be in charge of taking care of Arata. Takatora then reminds Rei that he is also a Golden Slayer like her. Rei asks him what he means by this, and Takatora suggests that they expand the guild while working together. He plans to support the guild with his Goto Corporation. Rei lets the dude know where she stands by telling him not to come any closer to her. Takatora is forced to back off, but he tells Rei that she will come running back when she sees just how cool he is. Rei is disgusted by Takatora's presence, and she tells Aoi to take Arata to the infirmary, and she promises to be there soon. Momentarily, Arata wakes up in the Navy Guild infirmary. He tries getting off the bed, but Aoi is there to stop him, telling him that she has lots of questions for him. Just then, Aoi says she has a bad feeling because Rei has not shown up yet. She leaves the room while telling Arata to stay on the bed and not dare run off again. Aoi rushes down the hallway, and she soon finds Rei, who claims that she got lost while trying to locate the infirmary. She grabs her by the hand while scolding her for missing her way. Aoi cannot believe that even with how strong Rei is, she is totally hopeless when it comes to directions. The two then return to the infirmary, and the moment they enter, Aoi asks Arata why he ran away from the guild the last time, and why he was also fighting Takatora. Arata stutters as he tries to answer, and Rei lets him know that he can be protected if he registers under the guild. In addition to this, he is going to get other benefits, but she wonders why he isn't registering. Arata still refuses to say anything, and Rei lets him know that no matter what, he will be placed under surveillance, but they are not going to try to control his life. After saying all of these, Rei asks him if he's ready to talk. Arata opens his mouth to talk, but he keeps quiet again. He realizes that he might end up putting his brother in danger if he says anything. Realizing that he is not ready to talk, Rei decides to back down, and she tells the two that it is time for them to head out. Arata is confused, but Aoi celebrates at the sound of this. Later that night, Arata finds himself visiting a restaurant with the girls. He is surprised that he was able to easily get out of the mess from earlier. Aoi tells him that he has been fighting for a couple of days, and even though it is good to be a workaholic, she lets him know that it is good for him to take breaks. The sound of this is appealing to Arata, who realizes that he hasn't had a proper meal in ages. Sitting in front of him are nice dishes and meat that he can easily munch on. He decides that he is just going to rest a little before he heads out to find his brother again. Aoi urges him to eat as much as he wants because the guild will be paying for everything. Arata is surprised to see such a nice gesture coming from the ladies. He realizes that they have been helping him back to back, but he has not really done anything in return for them. He wonders if it is okay for him to accept the food, but he soon realizes that he can't even hold back from the food again. Arata immediately digs in, and he thanks the two for the help. Tears drop from his eyes as he enjoys a good meal in what can be considered forever. The girls also join him in eating, and they look happy while doing so. Arata is left to wonder if he ever would have gotten the chance to sit with the girls if he hadn't gotten the orb. After they have eaten a bit, Rei decides to ask Arata some questions. She lets him know that he is also free to ask her whatever he wants to. The first thing she asks him is if he became a slayer recently. Aoi on the side teases Arata, telling him that he is lucky to be having a one-on-one conversation with Rei because people from the guild rarely get to. Arata then decides to ride on this, and he tells Rei that he has one thing to ask her. He asks Rei how the guild locates magic fissures. He is asking because he wants to be at a fissure before Takatora can get there. Rei then reveals that they predict the fissures just like predicting earthquakes. She explains that they analyze factors like geomagnetism, gravity, and cycles of past field disturbances, which they combine to get an approximate location of where a magic fissure will open. However, the accuracy is usually around 60%. Aoi can see Rei smiling around Arata, which is something she considers very unusual. Suddenly, Rei gets a notification on her phone, telling her that a magic fissure will occur near the LK building within the hour. From the evaluation that they have seen, it seems like the fissure will be a silver-class fissure. Rei becomes worried when she sees this, and she tells the two that they no longer have the time to be sitting around and eating. She believes that high-ranking monsters will appear in the fissure. She turns to Aoi, who immediately offers to go. Without hesitation, Arata also says he would like to go. Because Aoi will be going with him, Rei lets Arata know that she will permit him to go to the fissure. However, she urges him not to let his guard down because this might come back to bite him in the back. Arata assures the lady that he is going to be careful. Deep down, Arata is convincing himself that he should be able to handle a silver rank fissure since he has been leveling up. Aoi and Arata then head out toward the predicted destination, where the fissure will appear. Just as predicted, they get to see the rift open, and as expected, it came out as a silver rank fissure. Aoi can sense the excitement in Arata, and she asks him if he is okay. Arata assures the lady that he is fine and he can easily take on the fissure. Arata and Aoi then run into the fissure to try to clear it. This time around, they find themselves inside ruins. Arata is forced to ask what makes up the fissures. Aoi says it is said to be a place where beasts live, but no one can say for sure that it is all there is to it. Aoi says the fissures disappear when the boss is defeated, but she is pretty sure that there are places that don't disappear. Arata is shocked to hear Aoi's take on this. Arata is still talking about how there are no enemies nearby when he suddenly hears something approaching them. Before the two know what is going on, a level 25 sandworm appears from beneath them. It shows its large mouth covered with large teeth, and it suddenly dives back into the sand. Aoi tells Arata that they just need to listen closely for the sandworm. Aoi concentrates on her hearing, and she is able to figure out that the sandworm is aiming for them before it emerges from the sand. She then adds that there are several of them. Basically, they have been surrounded before they even know it. Aoi is confused and doesn't know what to do, but Arata tells her not to worry too much. Arata places his hand on the ground and releases the soot so he can sense the vibrations in the sand. Using this, Arata is confident that he will be able to sense where the sandworm is trying to approach them from. Just as he expected, he is able to pinpoint the sandworm's exit location. Just as the sandworm is emerging with its head, Arata already has his shadow blade on the ready. He slices off the sandworm's head, and he figures out that it will be easy for him to take on the sandworms as long as he knows where they are going to emerge from. Aoi is impressed by what Arata just did, and she compares it to whack-a-mole. Arata reveals that he was thinking about the things he could do the entire time that he was recovering in the infirmary. Arata explains that he already envisaged that he should be able to connect with the soot if he spreads it out thinly. Because he was unable to leave the hospital bed, this was all he was practicing. Arata is glad that everything went well, even though it's his first time. Arata has also figured out that he can use the soot in so many ways, which is not limited to combat. Aoi commends him for his ingenuity and says they will be able to handle the sandworms just fine. Arata then continues with the same strategy, and in no time he has taken out all of the sandworms, leaving only the Fisher boss. However, he tells Aoi not to let her guard down. They arrive at what appears to be a tomb, and Aoi urges Arata to stay on his toes because she can sense something off. She has not finished saying this when a stinger with a terrifying aura emerges from beneath the sand behind them. Arata initially thinks that it is another worm, but Aoi lets him know that he is wrong. She tells him that they are going to be begging for life if they get hit by the stinger. Just then, the stinger re-emerges behind Arata, but this time around, he is ready for it. Before the stinger can reach him, he turns around and cuts it down with his shadow blade. Arata reveals that the beast is just wasting its time if it thinks it can hide under the sand, because he already sent his soot deep into the ground, just like he did before. Aoi commends Arata for his wise decision to have spread the soot in advance. Aoi admits that Arata has gotten stronger. Arata also admits that he has gotten stronger, and not only that, Aoi is also with him. He figures out that with his current stats, he should be able to fight against silver ranks or even higher. Suddenly, the boss of the fissure finally decides to reveal itself, and it turns out to be an annoyed level 29 death scorpion. Arata has managed to cut off its stinger earlier, but it is still dangerous, thanks to the massive claws on it. The scorpion swings one of its claws at them, but Aoi comes to the rescue by blocking it with her shield. However, Aoi struggles against the power of the scorpion, and Arata notices this. Arata figures out that he needs to help out before things become dire. He charges toward the scorpion, but the scorpion notices him and almost cuts him in half with his other claw. Thanks to his agility, he is able to dodge the hit. Suddenly, Arata finds himself levitating in the sky, and this is thanks to a water platform created for him by Aoi. She urges him to make use of the platform to try to gain an advantage over the giant and terrifying scorpion. Arata thanks the girl, and he makes proper use of it by leaping off it and cutting off the scorpion's head, spilling green blood everywhere. Aoi excitedly walks toward Arata, revealing her relief that they were able to defeat the scorpion. Arata is also glad, and he tells the lady that they can finally head home. Just then, Aoi points out that something seems to be off about the whole thing. She points out the fact that the clear notification is not popping up, which is something that has never happened before. Given the fact that they have defeated the boss, the fissure should already have started disappearing, but this is not the case. Arata finally catches on to what Aoi is trying to say, and he asks her if there is the possibility that a fissure doesn't close. Suddenly, Arata senses an ominous presence, and what follows is a voice from a scary figure sitting beside them. The dude has long ears, and a dark purple aura emanates from his body like a demon. The scary dude talks about how fun it was watching them beat the scorpion. Arata and Aoi are shocked to see a magic beast, even though they have taken down the fissure boss. What shocks them the most is the fact that the magic beast can freaking talk. The dude then reveals how he likes controlling beasts to take out slayers. This is when it dawns on Aoi that the magic beast talking to them was the one controlling the fissure boss, which is something totally unheard of. The magic beast then decides to show the two what he is capable of. Since the scorpion claws are still lying around, he uses his power to start controlling the scorpion, telling it to fight to the very end. This is when it dawns on Arata that the dude can control the monsters even when they are in pieces. The scorpion charges at the two, and they frantically unleash their long-range attacks to dismantle the scorpion. The dude is not impressed by the scorpion's display, and he suggests that the two become his puppets instead. Aoi can only wonder just what in the world they have found themselves going up against. With a snap of his finger, the scary dude opens a fissure, and he tells them that they are free to come inside. He promises to give them a grand welcome if they follow him. Arata cannot believe that they have just run into a fissure inside another fissure. Arata figures out that the dude is hijacking the fissure and gathering bosses. Aoi tells Arata that the fissure in front of them appears to be the main base. The fissure looks more dangerous than every other fissure that they have come across, but Aoi figures out that they need to go inside to defeat the dude if they want to clear the original fissure. It finally dawns on the two that the real battle is just about to begin. The two walk into the fissure even though they are nervous. The fissure looks like a castle, and Arata wonders if it connects to the human world. Meanwhile, they are being watched from above without even realizing it. Suddenly, the magic beast above them comes leaping toward Arata with a sword, ready to decapitate it. However, Arata turns around just in time and fires his cannon into the beast's chest, ultimately taking it out by creating a large hole in its chest. Just then, the two notice that they are surrounded by a horde of monsters that appear to be boss-class monsters, and they are all under the dude's control. Arata cannot believe just how shameless the dude is for turning other monsters into his puppets. Aoi tells Arata that they might be strong enough to beat all of the monsters. Arata whips out his sword and cuts down a bunch of them, but they don't stop coming at him. The moment they realize that they are getting tired, they figure out that they need to ignore the other boss-class monsters and focus on defeating the main dude. Aoi points to where they need to go, and the two dash in that direction while the other puppets run after them. They manage to reach the throne where the dude is sitting and waiting for them. Even though they have managed to get to him, he has terrifying knights standing beside him, and they both have giant swords with them. The dude tells them that they might have cleared out most of his puppets, but he still has plenty more in reserve. Aoi then points out the fact that they are going to kill him, since his end will also bring an end to his so-called puppets. The dude laughs at them, telling them that they can only boast, but they are nothing but trash to him. Arata then asks him why he is going through all the trouble of gathering magic beasts, and the dude mentions that it is fun for him. He considers making other beasts his puppets and being able to control them at will the best thing there is. He then says humans are the same to him, which is why he wants to turn Arata and Aoi into his puppets. Since he is strong, he believes that it is his right to prey on the weak. Arata then decides to ask him the big question. He wants to know if there is a way that they can turn a human who has transformed into a magic beast back to normal. Aoi is shocked by this question, but the big bad demon immediately figures out that there is a person Arata wants to turn back to normal. Arata angrily asks him again, and the dude lets Arata know that he might be willing to say if he manages to defeat him. Just then, the dude unleashes his power, which allows him to control blood. Blood sharpened like projectiles aimed for Arata, and he managed to block most with his power. However, he gets hit by the rest. While still dealing with the blood attack, one of the knights reaches him. Arata watches as the knight swings his sword, ready to take him out, but Aoi comes to his rescue as usual. She creates a shield to protect Arata and block the knight's attack. However, this alone takes a huge toll on Aoi's body. Arata runs over to check on her, but she assures him that she is fine, even though she clearly doesn't look fine. Aoi then urges Arata to finish off the big bad demon while she handles the knights. Arata promises to take out the demon, and he charges toward him with the determination that he can't allow Aoi to get hurt any more than she currently is. Aoi casts a healing spell on herself to help her move a little so she can handle the knights and regroup with Arata. Aoi knows that her only chance is to finish off the beasts all at once, and there is just one way to do it. She puts her everything into the only skill that she is convinced can help her. She charges up and unleashes a powerful energy blast that dismantles the knights. However, the knights just rearrange themselves yet again, but Aoi isn't surprised, since she already suspected something of such happening. Aoi is ready to take on the knights with whatever energy she still has left inside her. As Arata rushes toward the big bad demon, the demon notices that Arata is stopping his bleeding by mixing soot with his blood to coagulate it. The demon considers this a very nice trick, and he smiles as he asks Arata if he is from the same world as him. Arata is shocked to hear this, and he figures out that the dude is talking about his unique skill. Instead of talking too much, the demon suggests that they finish their fight. He wants to see which is stronger between his blood and Arata's soot. The demon unleashes his blood at Arata, but Arata disperses the blood with his burst soon cannon. The demon then tries another trick. He throws a blood whip at Arata, waiting to see how he is going to handle it. Arata is able to slash it with his shadow blade, and this level of intensity from Arata excites the demon. He continues throwing the blood whip at Arata, but he continues blocking it. He teases Arata, telling him to unleash everything that he has. Arata, on the other hand, figures out that the demon will only wear him down with the way the fight is going. The demon then mocks Arata again, telling him that he is just a boring fighter. The demon then takes it a step further by telling Arata that he might just go after Aoi once he is done with him. The demon then directs his blood attack toward Aoi, who already has her hands full against the knights. Arata turns around to scream out Aoi's name, but at that moment he feels a blood spear impaling him from behind. He is confused and stunned by this as he coughs up blood. He crashes to the ground, and the demon mocks him for looking away during battle. The demon then prepares himself to turn Arata into his puppet, just like he promised. He aims his blood spike at Arata, but Aoi somehow manages to reach him and protect him yet again. The demon is pissed that Aoi is ruining his fun, and Aoi admits that the demon is pretty good for him to have taken Arata down. Instead of arguing with the demon, Aoi starts healing Arata with her powers without letting him know. When the demon figures this out, he makes fun of Aoi, telling her that Arata died because he was protecting her, but lets her know that there is no need for her to heal him. The demon's words cut through her chest when she hears that she is the reason Arata died. This makes her remember how a monster terminated her sister Minato right in front of her. Aoi wants to lose herself in the process, but she manages to calm herself, with the realization that the demon is only trying to get to her. She figures out that she just needs to hang out until Arata recovers. Since Aoi is not ready to give up on Arata, the demon decides to play with them both. He throws his blood whip at Aoi, but she blocks the attack with her water shield. The demon laughs at her when he realizes that she uses water attributes. He continues attacking, but Aoi just blocks everything, telling the demon that her water attribute exists to stop the spilling of blood. Apparently, her water attribute has what it takes to blend with anything, which is why it is great for support. She's been training overtime just to master her support roles. Just then, the demon realizes that Aoi is diluting the intensity of his blood by mixing it with water. The demon doesn't really care about this, and he figures out that he just has to bleed more. Aoi knows that she will eventually be overwhelmed by the demon's power if it continues the way it is. Just then, Arata regains consciousness, and Aoi wastes no time passing him a water bubble. She tells him to mix the water bubble with soot to change the game. Arata does as told, but the demon mocks them, telling them that no matter what they do, they have no chance whatsoever. The demon unleashes his blood whip just as usual, but this time, Arata meets him halfway with soot powered by water particles. It consumes his blood, shocking him. Unknown to him, water is the most adaptable thing, and it easily amplifies power. Aoi then leaves the fight to Arata, and she urges him to take down the demon. Arata doesn't waste time as he runs toward the demon. Using his shadow blade, he slashes the demon right on the chest. Blood spills everywhere, and the demon feels the impact of what Arata did. He crashes to the floor while holding his chest in pain. He admits that Arata has overdone himself as the first human who has caused him pain. The demon cannot believe that he is the one who is always the one with the advantage, but everything is about to switch. The demon known as Valgad gets a flashback of when he was about to leave his domain. His subordinate told him then not to leave, but he insisted, and before leaving, Valgad was told that the one thing he had ignored would come back to bite him in the arse. Valgad is surprised that everything is happening just as his subordinate said it would. Arata then demands that he teach him how to turn humans back from magic beasts. Valgad laughs at Arata, claiming that he said he would only tell him if he won. Arata is enraged, and he screams at him while demanding that he tell him how to turn his brother back into a human. Valgad takes a deep breath, as if he wants to tell Arata something important, but he switches it up and starts laughing at him, saying it is impossible. Valgad claims that there is no way a human can come back to being normal once they have transformed into a magic beast. Arata's face goes pale with shock and disappointment. Valgad doesn't hesitate to use this to mock him. Arata watches in horror as Valgad dies and turns into dust in front of him. Arata then jumps from level 15 to level 21, but he remains stationary. Aoi stands behind him, asking him if he is fine. Just then, an item dropped, and Aoi picked it up while calling Arata's attention to it. Apparently, an item has never dropped before after a fight. Aoi tells Arata that he might get a special skill by using the item. She passes it on to Arata to use, and when he collects it, he realizes that it is a skill. Vassalization. Arata realizes that it is the same skill that Valgad was using, but he doesn't seem to be interested in it. The system informs him that the skill allows him to resurrect any deceased individual as a vassal and control them. However, resurrected vassals don't retain their abilities, which means they will only obey their master's will. Momentarily, Arata and Aoi return to the real world after the fissure disperses. Arata doesn't look like a winner, but more or less a loser. What Valgad said keeps ringing in his head, but he doesn't want to believe that there is no way out. Aoi senses what is going on in his head, and she urges him to calm down, assuring him that there must be a way out if they work together. Arata then reveals that he still has the desire to save his brother, even if he can't turn him back to his human form. When they return to the guild, Aoi reported everything that happened to Rei. She sympathizes with Arata, and she figures out that Arata's power shares the same origin as Valgad's. Aoi then suggests that they capture Arata's brother and put him under surveillance. Aoi lets Rei know that Arata will never hurt people, even if he shares the same power as magic beasts. Aoi assures Rei that she knows this well by fighting alongside Arata, and even if it ever comes to that, she lets Rei know that she will stop Arata by herself. Realizing Aoi's determination, Rei agrees to this, but tells Aoi to leave Arata and let him rest. She lets Aoi know that she will consult the association about her proposition. Meanwhile, Arata returns to his old house. The entire apartment is looking like a rat's apartment, as if no human has ever lived there before. Arata walks around the house with the realization that his brother might never come back home. Arata is thinking about his brother when a fissure suddenly opens right in front of him. Arata is shocked that a fissure is opening inside the house. The fact that the fissure opened in his room makes him wonder if his brother is inside the fissure. He slowly walks into the fissure, and the insides of the fissure shock Arata since it looks familiar. Without thinking too much, he decides to explore before anything else. After walking for some minutes, he wonders why nothing is happening. He soon reaches a spot where it seems like the floor was destroyed using brute force. He walks toward a door, but when he tries opening it, he realizes that he can't because a wood is blocking it. He whips out his blade and destroys the door with it. He enters the room and to his surprise, he finds his brother in there. His brother has turned into a level 38 boss, and he doesn't seem like he knows who Arata is. Arata, on the other hand, starts weeping because he has finally found his brother. He tells his brother that he has been searching for him and never expected that he would be hiding in such a place. Arata acts casually in front of the beast, addressing him as his brother and urging him to come back home with him. However, his brother turns around and hits him with an energy blast that sends him crashing into the wall. Arata doesn't want to fight his brother, and he tries telling him that it is him. His brother tries to attack him again, but Arata leaps onto his shoulder to try and talk some sense into him, hoping that he would be able to reach him. Things go from bad to worse as Arata is smacked away like he is trash. Arata crashes to the ground while he wonders if his brother has truly turned into a magic beast. Suddenly he remembers the vassalization skill that he got after defeating Valgud. However, the condition to use the skill is that his brother has to be dead. While he is still contemplating what to do, his brother hits him again. Arata crashes to the ground and refuses to stand up because he feels guilty that he was unable to save his brother. His brother rushes toward him, and just as he is about to finish Arata off, he gets hit with a water attack that sends him flying to the ground. Arata gets back on his feet in shock, wondering what just happened to his big brother. Just then, he hears Takatora's voice behind him, calling him a pathetic loser. Takatora portrays himself as a hero and says he is there to save Arata. Arata immediately jumps between the dude and his brother, telling him not to interfere in the fight. Takatora is pissed that Arata is trying to protect a magic beast, but it suddenly dawns on him that Arata's brother is the magic beast. Arata questions Takatora and asks him why he is there. Takatora doesn't hide the fact that he has been monitoring Arata's movements. He lets him know that as long as he is affiliated with the Navy Guild, whatever he does is not hidden from him. Trying to protect his brother, Arata whips out his shadow blade. Takatora unleashes his ice blade, telling Arata that he now has an excuse to kill him with no one to complain, since he has chosen to protect a magic beast. Takatora confesses that he is going to end Arata's life under the pretense of justice. Arata angrily swings his sword at Takatora, but he easily blocks the attack. Takatora asks him if he has what it takes to protect the magic beast, but Arata argues with him, telling him that his brother is not a magic beast. Takatora then unleashes a long-range attack that tracks down Arata's brother. Concerned about his brother, Arata turns around to see if he is hurt, but Takatora makes fun of him for turning around in the heat of a battle. Enraged, Arata tries to strike Takatora down, but Takatora easily disperses all of his attacks while telling him not to get cocky. Takatora laughs at Arata, telling him that he is going to cut him up alongside his brother. Arata is pushed backwards, but he continues defending his brother, saying he is not a magic beast. Arata is ready to defend his brother day and night because of the memories that they have shared together. Arata reveals the determination he has when it comes to protecting his brother. He runs at Takatora again, and this time, his attack appears to be more powerful. Takatora feels the heat, forcing him to jump backward. Nonetheless, Takatora continues making fun of Arata for being a dirt-poor person. He lets Arata know that it is the end for him and his family, and Arata asks him what he means by this. Takatora then makes fun of Arata, telling him that there were 2 other magic beasts, and by this he is referring to Arata's parents. He reveals that he has already killed his parents, and he has no regrets about it because he even used them to gain experience points. This is enough to make Arata mad, and he unleashes a powerful aura from his body, but Takatora is not concerned as he tells Arata that he will not be showing him mercy. Takatora sends his deadly ice technique after Arata. A 3-headed ice beast slithers toward him, and Arata prepares himself to engage the beast. He swings his sword so hard that he manages to take down 2 of the heads, but he misses one. Takatora admits that Arata has gotten stronger, but it is still not enough. The last head comes flying at Arata, and Arata realizes that he doesn't even have the agility to escape. Just as he is about to get hit, his brother jumps in to protect him. His brother smashes the last head, shocking Arata. His brother doesn't stop there as he runs toward Takatora and he hits him so hard that he is sent flying into the wall. Arata is stunned when he sees this, leaving him to wonder if his brother is able to figure out who the enemy is. Takatora is now faced with Arata's brother, and even Takatora is surprised by what is happening. He refuses to believe that a beast can protect a human. Instead of worrying too much about it, Takatora decides that he will kill Arata and his brother. Arata figures out that he might have a chance if he is able to restrict Takatora's movements. He remembers what he did with Aoi's water bubble, and he decides to do the same thing again. He places his hand on the ground and releases the soot. Takatora assumes that he is creating a smokescreen like before, and he tries to counter this with his water powers, but before he knows it, the soot merges with the water to create a sticky fluid. Takatora finds himself trapped in the fluid, and Arata is pleased that his little plan worked. Arata believes that he has seen the perfect opportunity to take Takatora down. He leaps toward him, but before he can even reach him, Takatora disperses the sticky fluid. Takatora prepares to cut Arata down, but suddenly, his brother appears behind him. Before he can react, Arata's brother smashes his hands together to catch Takatora, and this leaves a loud explosion. Arata is shocked and excited that his brother managed to defeat Takatora. Arata is about to relax when he suddenly sees his brother coughing up blood. Arata's face lights up in horror as he watches Takatora emerge from the shadows and cut down his brother like he is tissue. Arata screams in horror, but it is already too late as Takatora cuts his brother down to his soul. Arata falls to his knees as his brother turns to dust right in front of him. He still doesn't want to believe it until the notification comes in that the fissure has been cleared. Arata returns to his room in tears while Takatora stands above him, reminding him that he already told him not to be cocky. He continues making fun of Arata, telling him that learning a skill doesn't mean he can win. Arata then mutters a single statement, and this is him telling Takatora that he's going to kill him. With tears running down his face, Arata gets on his feet, and a dark, scary aura swirls around him. The entire room is filled with dark shadows, and Takatora can feel it. Nonetheless, he is not scared since this is not the first time Arata has acted cool, and he has put him back on his arse. Takatora lets Arata know that he is going to finish him off with just one strike. Before he can even move, Takatora finds himself engulfed by soot. Before he can react, Arata swings his sword so hard that it knocks Takatora out of the room. Takatora falls to the ground with pain crawling all over his body, while he wonders how he is losing to Arata. Arata walks over to him, telling him that he will never be satisfied, no matter how many times he kills him. Takatora cannot believe that he is actually getting the chills from a dude he considered to be weak. However, he gets back on his feet with the intention of finishing Arata off. He activates his ultimate attack, but this time around Arata consumes it with his shadow power. Before Takatora knows it, he is pinned to the ground by Arata's several blades and weapons. Arata doesn't look like himself as he walks toward Takatora, asking him if he is done fighting already. Fear starts creeping in, and Takatora figures out that he needs to escape. This only causes Arata to get angrier, and he unleashes a powerful aura that totally knocks Takatora out. He is about to finish him off when Aoi's shield appears over Takatora to protect him. Aoi appears on the scene, telling Arata that she is never going to allow him to touch Takatora. Aoi can sense the immense power coming from Arata's aura. Aoi's barrier doesn't seem to be enough as Arata's shadow blade breaks through it. Aoi gets hit in her arm, causing her intense pain. Aoi is left to wonder what sort of power Arata is wielding inside. Even though she has no chance against Arata, she still stands up to defend Takatora and stop Arata from killing him. Aoi realizes that he has no chance against Arata. Aoi is scared that things will go south if Arata increases his aura. While lying weakly, Takatora makes fun of Arata and Aoi, telling them that the association will take over once they realize that things are bad. Aoi, on the other hand, is thinking of how she wants to get Arata back to his normal self. Aoi fails to stop Arata as he unleashes more aura into the environment, which ends up destroying nearby buildings. Rei is watching this from her office, and she decides that it is time for her to step in and subdue Arata. At the Jade Sky Guild, Takuto has gotten info on Arata's out-of-control state. He decides that it is time he steps in and takes Arata off the street. Arata continues releasing a powerful aura into the surroundings. He targets Aoi, and just as he is about to finish her off, Rei shows up. She blocks Arata's strike with her power, and she apologizes to Aoi for being late. Rei gently places her on the ground, and she urges her to rest while she fights Arata. Rei figures out that something must have triggered Arata's power and rage, which is why he is totally out of control. Just then, Takuto shows up on the scene. He is hyped to take on Arata, but Rei tries to stop him. Takuto reveals that the association has a different viewpoint to the way they see things. When Rei hears this, she asks Takuto what the association is planning to do, but he refuses to answer the question. Takuto mentions that Rei and Aoi seem to be attached to Arata already. Rei argues that she is only doing what other guildmasters will. The two are still arguing when Arata tries to attack Takuto from behind. Rei screams at him to warn him, but Takuto doesn't look like someone who is scared. Arata swings his sword frantically to try to get Takuto, but suddenly Takuto's presence turns to petals. This shocks Rei, but before anyone can react again, Takuto hits Arata with his skill, the ethereal dance. This knocks Arata down, but Rei is shocked as she never expected Takuto's skill to easily take down Arata. Rei immediately reveals her stance, telling Takuto that she won't allow him to kill Arata if that is his plan. Takuto grins while assuring Rei that he has no intentions of killing Arata. Takuto reveals that he would not want to kill someone who is shrouded in mystery. Arata gets back on his feet and lets off a loud scream, and the moment he does this, he starts drawing in power. Takuto is not surprised by this, as he already suspected that Arata is gathering power from magic beasts. Arata turns his attention toward Takuto and tries to manifest a bunch of weapons to kill him, but he remains standing. Takuto is impressed, but at the same time, he figures out that Arata doesn't have full control over his power yet, and he is just letting it run wild. Takuto stares at Rei, telling her that he is ready to finally take down Arata. Rei is more interested in what the association wants, but Takuto doesn't have an answer to this. His entire body is engulfed in a green aura as he prepares to take out Arata. Before Arata knows it, Takuto's power restrains him. Before Rei can start getting worried, Takuto assures her that Arata is not dead but sleeping. With this, Takuto vanishes with Arata's body. After the two are gone, Rei fears the worst might happen to Arata at the association. Just then, Aoi returns to the scene after she had left to help civilians evacuate. She is shocked when there is no sign of Arata anywhere. Rei finds it hard to reveal that Arata has been taken away. When Arata wakes up, he finds himself tied up. He is still wondering where he is when a dude, who looks like a maniac, shows up. He has a whip with him, and he smiles as he tells Arata that he is about to get started with him. Meanwhile, Takatora is pissed that Arata escaped from his grasp. He vows to crush him one day alongside the Heavenly Five so he can become the pinnacle of power. Even though he is pissed that he didn't get to kill Arata, he is also relieved and happy that Arata will currently be facing severe punishment from the association. Later on, Rei visits Arata at the holding cell where he is being tortured. She tries to get him to talk to her so that things can be easy on his path, but Arata tells her that he doesn't really care what happens to him anymore. They are in the middle of this when Rei gets an emergency message that 3 Silver Slayers have vanished inside a rift, and Aoi has gone in for the rescue. Rei is surprised that Aoi has gone for the rescue when she is supposed to be resting. She talks about how Aoi is always pushing herself to the extreme, even when she needs to rest. Knowing how dangerous the situation is, she concludes that Aoi is currently in danger. Earlier, at the Slayers' headquarters, Doju puts a call through to the Golden Slayers, apologizing for running their busy schedules. But he lets them know that they are currently in an emergency situation. Doju moves straight to the point and tells them that they have secured Arata. Ryo is shocked to hear this as he tells the president that Arata is not a bad person, and they are not supposed to just lock him up without evidence or at least a hearing. Doju mentions that the charges against Arata include engaging in combat while out of control and causing catastrophic destruction to the city. He adds that the worst of all is that Arata went against the association rules and ruined the people's trust. He continues by saying Arata's unknown power is believed to come from the Magai, and many Slayers are even demanding that they eliminate him. Ryo and Rei are shocked to hear this, and Rei tells Doju that she is going to take responsibility for Arata, since she is the one in charge of managing and supervising him in the Navy Guild. Doju then tells them that they are going to determine Arata's true nature and question him about any ties to the Magai. Doju lets them know that Arata's connection to the Magai might be their only chance at knowing the truth. When Shion hears this, she immediately figures out that an interrogator has been put to work on Arata's case, forcing her to sympathize with the poor lad. Doju then tells the Gold Slayers to remain on high alert because unusual movements are expected from the Magai. It was after the call that Rei realized that Arata was in a bad place. Meanwhile, at the underground prison cell for first-class violators, the Slayer's Inquisitor, Ikazu Kamigari, is seen having fun with Arata. He demands that Arata tell him everything he knows about the Magai, because from that moment forward, he is not going to take it easy on him. Kamigari threatens to hit Arata so hard that his flesh falls off his bones. With a battered face, Arata assures the dude that he doesn't know anything. This pisses Kamigari off, and he raises his whip. But just as he is about to land a hit on Arata, Rei enters the room, screaming at him to stop. She introduces herself and tells Kamigari to halt the interrogation. Kamigari is surprised to see an esteemed individual in such a filthy place, and he asks Rei if she has permission. Rei lies by telling Kamigari that she has permission, and she tells Kamigari to leave the room because she wants to speak with Arata alone. Kamigari walks out but warns Rei about breaking any rules. After Kamigari's departure, Rei talks about how bad Arata looks, and she asks him if he remembers transforming before going on a rampage. Arata is surprised to hear this because the last thing he remembers is fighting Takatora after he killed his brother. However, everything went blank at some point, and Rei tells him that Aoi was the one who stepped in to prevent him from killing Takatora. Arata is shocked to hear this, and Rei further tells him that Aoi got caught in the crossfire, but she is currently getting herself treated. Arata is saddened when he hears this, and he concludes that he deserves what he is currently getting. He adds that he doesn't even have anything left because he had to watch the only person he cared about, his brother, get killed right in his presence, without being able to do anything about it. They are talking about this when the message about Aoi entering the rift for a rescue comes in. Aoi gets concerned when she hears this, and he asks Rei what happened to Aoi. Rei explains that they lost communication with several Silver Slayers, and she forced herself into the rift, even though she is not fully fit. Rei then decides that she will speak with Doju. Arata is about to crash out when Rei pats him on the shoulder, telling him that he can't undo the past, but there is still something only he can do as long as he still has the power of a Slayer. With a subtle voice, Arata mentions that he has nothing left, and Rei lets him know that she cannot testify if he is evil or not, but she felt something from him. Rei then breaks Arata free from his bondage while telling him that she trusts her instincts, which is why she is freeing him. Just then, Kamigari returns to the room, telling Rei that he just got word that she never got permission, which means she lied. Kamigari tells Rei that she might be a guildmaster, but since she already lied to protect a violator, he is not going to show mercy. Kamigari brings out his whip as he walks toward Rei, telling her that the area's magnetic field interferes with skill activation. In addition, the whip he is holding breaks the sound barrier, which means he holds all the cards, since Rei is pretty useless without her skills. Kamigari excitedly talks about how good his job is because he never thought he would get the chance to rough up a Golden Slayer. He dashes toward Rei, aiming to land a hit on her, but Rei easily kicks him in the chest, rearranging his organs in shock. Rei lets the dude know that she is going to get the permission after all of this is done. Rei gets another message, informing her that no one can go to Aoi's rescue at the moment. Rei then turns to Arata, telling him that regretting the past won't change a thing, but the choice he makes at the moment decides who he truly is. These words hit Arata so much, and he takes a moment to think about it. He realizes that he has nothing left, but he still has comrades who fought beside him, and because of this, he decides that he is never going to lose someone precious again. With a determined voice, Arata tells Rei that he is going to save Aoi no matter what. Rei is glad to hear this, and she tells Arata that they should all make it back so that they can have barbecue together later. Arata then makes his move, trying to find the exit out of the building. Suddenly, he runs into 3 officials who are there to capture him. Arata is confused as he has no idea what to do in this situation. Before he can come up with a solution, Ryo shows up, teasing Arata that he came to check on him after he heard that he got his ass locked up. Ryo then asks Arata what he plans to do now that he is out of prison, and Arata replies that he is going to do what he has to do. Ryo asks him if he is talking about his brother, whom he mentioned earlier. Arata says no, telling him that he just has to save his comrade. Arata tells Ryo that if he can do this, he doesn't really care what happens to him. Ryo is shocked to hear this, and he realizes that Arata still has that flare in him. Ryo then decides to take everything upon himself, and he tells the officials not to worry about Arata because he's going to keep an eye on him. To keep their minds at rest, he tells them to tell Doju what he said. With this, Ryo tells Arata that it is time for them to move. Arata watches Ryo in admiration, and he runs after him without hesitation. Moments later, they make it to the rift, and Ryo asks Arata what he meant when he said his comrades are in danger. Arata reveals that several Slayers have stopped responding, and Ryo is surprised that the rift has not closed, since it is considered to be a silver-class fissure. Arata immediately gets worried as he starts to wonder what might have happened to Aoi. Without hesitation, the two dive into the fissure, and upon entering, they realize that it is a forest-type rift. However, Ryo notices that most of the rift has already been cleared, which means the only thing left is the boss. Arata then gets on his knees to put his soot to work, telling Ryo that he is going to search for it. Ryo is surprised to hear that Arata now has an enemy detection skill, which means he has gotten pretty advanced. Arata is in the middle of this when a monster comes flying at them, but Ryo easily trashes the monster with a backhand punch imbued with overwhelming firepower. Another monster emerges from the right, aiming for Arata. Arata gets pissed off that the monsters are messing with the search, and without mercy, he cuts down the monster. Ryo is impressed when he sees this because it just shows that Arata has leveled up since the last time he saw him. Arata then continues with his search, and moments later he notices that he is sensing something weird. Arata urges Ryo to stay on guard, and just then, one of the missing Silver Slayers emerges in the distance. Arata's face brightens up when he sees the lady because one of the slayers turned out to be alright, even though she looks badly injured. They rush toward her, asking her what happened. Just as she is answering them, telling them that a slayer turned into a magic beast, she gets bitten by one of the transformed slayers. Ryo and Arata immediately come to a halt, trying to understand what is going on. The girl starts to cough and suddenly, an overwhelming amount of dark aura emerges from her body, causing a transformation. Arata freaks out when he realizes that the girl just transformed into a magic beast. Ryo then mentions that they are dealing with an infectious type, which makes it really bad. The transformed slayer lunges toward Arata with the intention of striking him down, but Arata finds it hard to attack because all he can see is his brother. His hand starts to tremble even though he is facing an imminent threat, and when Ryo sees this, he screams at him, asking him what it is that he is doing. Arata almost gets decapitated, but Ryo pulls him back to save his life. He asks him if he is fine, but Arata is trembling so hard that sweat is dripping from all over his body. Arata then tells Ryo that he can't kill people, but Ryo lets Arata know that the lady is no longer human. The two transformed slayers charge at them, and Ryo takes it upon himself to take them down with a fiery punch. After taking out the beasts, Ryo tells Arata that this is most likely the handiwork of the boss. Basically, it turns people into magic beasts, and the magic beasts go ahead to infect other humans too. Arata tries to speak up, but Ryo lets him know that those who were infected probably hesitated just like him, which is why they ended up the way they did. Ryo finally realizes why so many slayers were wiped out. With a fiery stance, Ryo lets Arata know that it is going to be catastrophic if one of the infected magic beasts escapes the fissure. Ryo assures him that the damage will be more than any cursed soul can do, which is why they have to defeat them inside the fissure. Just then, an overwhelming presence emerges in the distance, and with it comes the boss, who has an ugly head with numerous teeth. At the same time, Aoi appears beside them, and Arata's face brightens up because he believes that Aoi is safe. Suddenly, the dark aura emanates from her body, causing her to scream in pain. She falls and Arata rushes over in panic, calling for someone to use healing magic on Aoi. However, Aoi lets him know that there is no use for this, and she also apologizes for not being able to protect everyone. It turns out that Aoi has gotten herself bitten on the arm, which is obviously infected. As she slowly starts to transform, she tells Arata that she is glad she got to meet him, even though it was short. She then tells Arata that she is going to be leaving the rest in his hands. Arata screams out in horror, telling Aoi not to turn into a magic beast, with the deluded belief that they can still save her. However, Aoi grabs his hands, telling him to start trusting himself from that moment forward. Aoi encourages Arata, telling him that she is fully confident that he can go on to become a great slayer who saves a lot of people. After saying this, Aoi crashes to the ground, and her words ring in Arata's head, causing him so much emotional pain. He screams out in pain, and Ryo turns around to tell him that everyone who has been bitten has been turned. Just then, the boss charges at Ryo, but he manages to block the attack with his arms. On the other hand, Arata is watching Aoi's transformation in horror, while wondering why the transformation won't stop even though it appears that Aoi is already dead. Arata, being who he is, starts racking his brain because he believes that there has to be a way to stop the transformation. He is in the middle of this thought process when Aoi jumps to her feet like a zombie. She looks totally different, but Arata is still not ready to accept the reality of what is in his presence. While still struggling with the boss, Ryo screams at Arata, telling him that Aoi is now a magic beast, and he should forget about what feelings he has. Ryo tells Arata to take Aoi down because once a human turns into a magic beast, there is no coming back from it. Just as Ryo said, Aoi lunges at Arata with the intention of punching him. Arata tries to fight back, but he finds it hard to do, and instead of fighting, he leaps backward to dodge Aoi's strike. Arata speaks out in fear, telling Ryo that he has no way of fighting Aoi, and Ryo decides to leave the boss so he can take Aoi down himself. However, Arata blocks him, telling Ryo that Aoi is the only comrade he has, which is why he is hesitant to fight or kill her. Ryo yells at him, telling him to fight because he is going to die if he gets closer to Aoi. Ryo lets him know that Aoi is no longer human, but Arata doesn't want to believe this. They are in the midst of this argument when the boss appears behind them, aiming to use the distraction as a means to get them. However, Ryo's reflexes kick into action, and he pulls them out of harm's way. Ryo returns to fight the boss, while Arata remains the crybaby that he is, talking about how he is not ready to lose anyone again. He starts thinking of everything he can do to stop the situation from escalating. Suddenly, he remembers the new skill, vassalization, that he got earlier on. Since this is a skill to revive a deceased being to control them, Arata believes that it is a way out. However, he is also worried about the ethical side of using the skill on Aoi. Nonetheless, he concludes that by using the skill on Aoi, she gets to be with him, even though it is not really her. Arata then throws hesitation out of the bag, and he proceeds with the skill activation because he is not prepared to lose someone precious to him again. Aoi gets hit with the skill, releasing a purplish dark aura into her body. Moments later, Arata gets the notification that the transformation is complete. In a surprising turn of events, Aoi looks totally different as she bows to Arata just like a subject offering their respects to their master. Arata also gets another notification that the lady in front of him is a half-demon called Chiharu Toyoi, and she is now his vassal. Arata walks up to her, calling her Aoi, and asking her if she is fine. He notices that the skill actually worked, but her aura feels completely different from the usual Aoi. Arata also figures out that the magic beast conversion might have stopped, but she is no longer Aoi. Ryo turns around to scream at Arata again, telling him that Aoi is no longer human. However, Arata argues with Ryo, telling him that he already made her his vassal. Ryo is shocked to hear this, as he wonders where Arata might have gotten the skill from. Arata, on the other hand, is convinced that there is going to be a way to bring Aoi back someday, since it is not a full Magai conversion. Just then, Aoi's facial expression changes into an angry expression, and she dashes toward the boss. She tries to slash the boss, but her arm gets caught in the boss's mouth. However, Aoi is not affected, and this is because the Magai conversion can no longer work on her. Aoi then returns the favor by punching the boss in the throat while Arata finally joins the fight. He leaps toward the boss and with a powerful slash he cuts the boss in half, ultimately turning it into dust. With this, Arata gets the notification that the boss has been defeated and the rift will disappear. When they finally return to the guild, Rei is left in disbelief as she cannot believe that the lady in front of her is Aoi. Rei asks them why Aoi ended up the way she did, and Ryo mentions that Aoi was on the verge of becoming a magic beast when they found her, and this was because she was bitten by the boss. Arata reveals that he had to use his vassalization skill, explaining that the magic beast they fought earlier had the skill, which is why he got it after defeating the boss. Arata tells Rei that he didn't want to use the skill, but he believes that it is better than losing Aoi completely. He mentions that by becoming his vassal, he was able to stop the Magai conversion, and now Aoi completely obeys him. Rei is stunned by everything being dumped on her, and she nervously calls Aoi's name. To their surprise, Aoi responds by calling Rei's name. The trio is shocked as they can't believe that Aoi just spoke. Rei demands to know who she is, and she reveals that she is Toyoi, a magic beast, but assures them that Aoi's consciousness still resides deep within her. She is a magic beast, but at the same time she is not one because she can feel everyone's emotions. When Arata hears this, he is glad to know that Aoi is still alive, which means they might actually get the chance to bring her back one day. Ryo, on the other hand, remains skeptical, as he asks Arata if he is sure that Toyoi won't suddenly attack people even if he orders her not to. With a fiery determination, Arata assures them that he will never let this happen, telling them that he is going to bet his life on it. Ryo asks him how he intends to prove this because Toyoi might just lose control and start attacking humans. Rei is taken aback by this, but even though Ryo's words hurt, he knows that he is not wrong. Arata then turns to Toyoi to give her an order, telling her to play with the cat, which is sitting in the corner of the room. Without thinking twice, Toyoi excitedly walks to the cat and starts petting it. Rei is blown away by this, and instead of seeing Toyoi, all she sees is Aoi petting the cat. Even Ryo cannot believe that a cat is calm in front of a magic beast. Ryo concludes that what they are witnessing is not just in obedience to an order, but a testament that Aoi is still kind inside, which is why she won't attack humans. Toyoi then picks up the cat and walks to Ryo, who gets startled. He tells Toyoi that he knows she is safe, but he is still not comfortable yet. Rei immediately figures out that Ryo is scared of cats, but he tries to deny this. Arata and Toyoi end up laughing at the dude for acting all tough but scared to touch a harmless cat. Rei then asks Arata if he can look after Toyoi, assuring Arata that she is going to handle the association. Without hesitation, Arata assures Rei that he can stay with Toyoi. Deep down, Arata knows that they are going to need Toyoi's strength in the future, which is why they have to stay on good terms with her. Arata then turns to Toyoi, telling her that he wants her to start supporting him in battle. Toyoi excitedly replies, assuring Arata that as his vassal, he can fully trust her. Elsewhere, the association is detecting massive geomagnetic fluctuations across several areas, which is pointing to the fact that a large-scale rift is coming back. Moments later, Doju gets the report on this, and he orders a Code Zero to all guilds. Deep down, Doju is not surprised, as he was already expecting the massive rift to return, even though it took 17 years to show up. He stares at the portrait on his table, which is of him when he was younger. The picture was taken with someone obviously close to him, but their face is blurred out. Back at the Navy Guild, Rei also gets informed that Doju just issued a Code Zero. The moment Rei and Ryo hear this, a chill sensation creeps through their bodies. In the city, everyone is going about their daily business when a massive fissure appears in the sky, shocking everyone. Those who were around 17 years ago figure out that they are about to witness the same thing that happened back then. As the rift gets bigger, several monsters emerge from it, panic ensues, and the citizens start running, while the monsters give chase. However, slayers in the area immediately rally around to try to contain the situation. They are shocked at how many monsters are pouring out of the rift, but they are not scared, since it is their job to secure the area no matter what. Before they know it, they find themselves surrounded by a horde of monsters, which immediately tells them that they are screwed because there is no way they are sealing off the perimeter this way. Suddenly, all of the monsters get roasted in a cloud of fire, and as the smoke clears, the two young slayers see the gold slayers walking up to them. A wave of relief hits them because the gold slayers arrived just in time. Meanwhile, some of the citizens are already getting caught in the deadly aura of the rift, causing them to shapeshift. Ryo then orders the slayers with them to evacuate the citizens to a safe zone. After giving the order to take care of the citizens, Ryo tells Rei that it is time for them to enter the fissure and crush whatever boss is residing in it. Rei urges Ryo not to let his guard down, so that they don't have a repeat of what happened 17 years ago. Rei wonders just how big the rift is going to be inside. Ryo assures Rei that he is aware of the dangers posed by the big rift because the higher-ups are always narrating the story from 17 years ago, which he even got tired of at some point. Elsewhere, Doju and Shion are also planning to enter the rift, and Doju tells Shion that they can't allow what happened back then to happen again. Shion teases Doju, telling him that she understands what he is saying, assuring him that they are going to clean up the mess real quick. At the same time, Takuto is preparing to enter the fissure, as he has been waiting for a long time to do this. As he enters, Arata and Toyoi show up on the scene, and Arata tells Takuto that they are going to hold the line on the outside because this is the order given to them by Rei. Before Rei left, she had told Arata to prove himself with his actions by fighting like a slayer would do, since they had no idea when they were going to be back. Following Rei's orders, Arata and Toyoi take on the monsters in the surrounding area, killing them while saving the citizens in danger. One of the women who was saved pats her crying son on the head, telling him that she already assured him that the slayers would come to their rescue. Just then, flying magic beasts emerge from the rift, leaving Arata totally confused. He doesn't understand why a large number of magic beasts are emerging from the location. He concludes that they are in serious trouble because flying monsters are a new discovery. Suddenly, one of the flying monsters dashes toward the woman and son that Arata just struggled to save. As the monster is about to hit them, Arata cuts it with his soot powers. He then dashes toward the mother and child, asking them if they are fine. The woman assures Arata that she is fine while thanking him for the help. Arata looks into the sky and realizes that the flying monsters are everywhere. He figures out that it is going to be a big problem if they keep scattering into different areas, leaving him to start racking his brain on what to do. Arata tells Toyoi that the monsters are not that strong, but the problem is that they can't do anything while the monsters stay in the air, and they are stuck on the ground. Before they know it, the flying monsters start multiplying like bees, and more keep emerging from the rift. Arata immediately tells Toyoi that they can't sit around without doing anything because the area is just going to get wrecked if something is not done. Arata figures out that he has to take out the monsters as fast as he can, and he shoots out soot as projectiles at the monsters. He manages to take out a few, but because the monsters are moving so fast, he figures out that it is going to take a lot of effort just to hold them back. Arata knows for sure that other regions are also in danger if the flying monsters successfully take over the area, which is why he has to take them down when they are still in the same place. Just then, 3 other slayers show up on the scene, and they are shocked at the new type of monsters. The squad leader tells those with defensive capabilities to protect the citizens around, while the slayers with long-range abilities should support Arata. Deep down, Arata is fired up because he is ready to take down all of the monsters, since he is trying to prevent his area from falling into ruins. At the same time, he is worried that everything he has been doing so far isn't enough, which is why he has to find a way to slow them down. Arata concludes that using his soot skill will help him out. He tries to concentrate to try and find a way to use it, since he has done this a lot of times, and this knowledge is the only thing that can help him right there. Just then, Arata starts emitting a large wave of soot from his hand, which covers the entire area, encompassing all of the monsters without leaving one. Once he is sure that he has all of them in his grasp, he hardens the soot, which ultimately solidifies the beast. Surprisingly, his plan starts working, but he figures out that using this amount of soot will burn through his MP pretty fast, and if he fails to kill all of the monsters at once, he is done for. Arata then increases the mass of the soot to drag down the monsters, which works out pretty well. With the monsters in reach, Toyoi kicks into action to start cutting them down. With this, Arata is able to wipe out the monsters he trapped in just one move. He realizes that he can also use his skills more easily than before. Arata then decides to continue with the momentum to wipe out the rest of the monsters. Arata taps into his power again, but this time around he is already straining himself as he tries to take them down in one move. This time around, Arata conjures a large sword, using soot, and with the monsters in place he cuts them down at once, ultimately securing the area. The slayers behind Arata are left in awe when they see this. The citizens, on the other hand, jump up in joy because they finally defeated the beasts. Arata is exhausted from this, and he falls to his bum, but one of the slayers rushes over to commend him. He tells him that it is thanks to him that they are able to protect the area, and with the look of things, there is no indication that they are going to come out in large numbers again. The slayer grabs Arata's hand and helps him up. Deep down, Arata is relieved that he is able to hold the line, which means the rest is up to the gold slayers to handle. Arata finally understands what it means to encounter a large-scale rift, but he wonders why the pushback was small. Just then, the slayer who just commended him received a call about the headquarters being on fire. Arata freaks out when he hears this because if the HQ burns down, the whole chain of command will be destroyed. At the central complex, which is home to the Earth Guild, also known as the Seiwa Guild, resides the command pillar that governs every Slayer operation. In the building is the nationwide Slayer system, which has a record of every magic rift that has taken place. This is the command center that relays missions to each guild. Inside the building is also the armory, the medical ward. On top of this, the reward distribution, training facilities, detention cells for rogue slayers, and even the media control hub. Its duties basically stretch across every corner of the country, and if this headquarters falls, this means the entire Japanese defense grid against magic beasts is gone. Inside the headquarters, a dude named Kohaku Do, who is silver ranked and under dojo, has taken command. He calls out orders, telling the slayers to evacuate all non-combatants to make sure that they are protected. He tells the regular slayers to pair up and keep tight formation, while the bronze ranks are to guard the core facilities and report any changes immediately. The silver-ranked slayers, on the other hand, will be the ones to take on the subjugation of the magic beasts that are trying to take over the headquarters. With a determined voice, Kohaku tells the slayers that it is up to them to hold the line, since the gold slayers are already away. Kohaku looks outside the window to see a bunch of flying monsters surrounding them. He wonders why so many magic beasts suddenly appeared out of nowhere, even though they are nowhere near the large-scale fissure. He figures out that the magic beasts must have waited for Doju and the other gold slayers to leave before making their move. He wonders if creating a defensive barrier around the rift is still not enough. Looking into the distance, he realizes that the slayers holding the line are struggling against the monsters. As if this is not bad enough, the slayers left in the building are raiders, which means that they are not made for defense, but for assault. Just then, Kohaku gets word that the infirmary is on fire, and this shocks him because he can't believe that magic beasts have already reached the infirmary. Without hesitation, he heads to the infirmary while telling the slayer beside him to gather intel on everything so that they can have a clear picture of what is happening. On his way to the infirmary, Kohaku is worried that he might not be up to the task that Doju gave him because Doju left the association in his care before leaving. Upon his arrival at the infirmary, Kohaku realizes that it is filled with magic beasts that have wrecked the area. One of the magic beasts hurls a fire attack towards him, but he leaps out of the way to dodge it. With anger in his voice, Kohaku tells the beast that they are not allowed to run wild in the headquarters. He figures out that fire attribute beasts and wind attribute beasts are working together while using the flames as cover. Since wind is his weak attribute, Kohaku wonders if taking out the fire-type beast is the right way to go about it. Just then, Arata and Toyoi show up on the scene, and seeing how everything has turned out, Arata confirms that the headquarters is truly on fire. Even though he didn't want to come to the headquarters, he realizes that he has no choice at this point. Arata then turns to Kohaku, telling him that he is going to put out the flames so he can handle the monsters. Kohaku is pissed that a slayer appeared out of nowhere to bark orders at him. Just then, he takes a closer look and realizes that Arata is the irregular who escaped. He can also sense the magic beast aura from Toyoi's body. Arata ignores Kohaku's complaints and unleashes his soot to quench the raging fire. Kohaku is shocked when he sees Arata take out the fire with just a single blast. Even though Arata is an irregular slayer, Kohaku decides to work with him in the meantime. One of the monsters dashes toward Arata, but Kohaku's power comes into play, and he petrifies the monster with his power. Kohaku mocks the monster, saying he just got another artifact for his collection. Kohaku then places his hand on the ground, and he pulls out a scary spear before dashing at the petrified monster. He pushes the spear into the monster, shattering it into pieces. Kohaku then tells Arata that he is putting him on probation until the headquarters is safe. Kohaku lets Arata know that it is their job to wipe out every last magic beast in the area, and Arata agrees with him. Deep down, Arata is relieved that he is getting the chance to fight alongside a prodigy who was able to earn the Seiwa Guild's #2 seat at a very young age. Even though he is not sure if Kohaku can use the petrification spell again, he is impressed at how powerful the skill is. Arata figures out that by using his soot, he can harden the beasts and then seal them away. Arata does just this, and when Kohaku sees this, he is shocked to see that Arata was able to copy his skill just from seeing it once. Once they clear out the area, Arata commends Kohaku, telling him that the skill he used earlier was pretty impressive. Kohaku turns away to prevent Arata from seeing his red face, while claiming that the skill is nothing compared to what he can do. Kohaku then asks Arata why he is recklessly throwing out his skills, letting him know that his control is a total disaster. Kohaku lets him know that the kind of carelessness he is operating on will drain his MP while also leaving him wide open. Kohaku says this is the reason he is always wiped out, since he doesn't know the basic stuff. Arata is surprised to hear this, since he doesn't even know anything about the skill. He has just been fighting like hell and never once thought about it. Kohaku teases him, telling him to try not to drag the team down. However, Arata is confused about what they are supposed to protect first, since they have found themselves in this type of situation. Meanwhile, in the headquarters Divine Armory, Takatora is seen meddling with weapons that don't belong to him. He finds a golden sword and decides that he is going to take it since everything has gone to shit. He plans to become the hero who saves everyone, since the Gold Slayers are nowhere to be found. The moment he grabs the divine sword, he feels an insane amount of power coursing through his body, which gives him the idea that he has now surpassed the 5 heavenly kings. He lets out a maniacal scream while declaring himself to be the strongest. On the other hand, Arata, Kohaku, and Toyoi continue subjugating monsters throughout the headquarters. Kohaku is left confused about where they are supposed to defend first. He doesn't know if it is the command room first or the storage room. After taking out so many monsters, Arata is left wondering where the beasts are coming from because he didn't find any magic beasts near the headquarters when they arrived. Kohaku agrees with him, saying they have to find out pretty fast. He mentions that he is going to see if there are any signs of the beasts coming from the space near the headquarters. He places his hand on the ground to detect signals, and he reveals that the Earth's energy is messed up already, as if something happened underground. Once he is locked in on the origin of the problem, Kohaku makes his way there, telling Arata to keep up or risk getting left behind. Moments later, they arrive at the headquarters' underground record storage room. To their surprise, there is a large hole in the middle of the room where the beasts must have crept in from. The monsters were able to use this hole to infiltrate the building, while they were all focused on the large-scale demonic rift. Just then, another wave of monsters shows up on the scene, and Kohaku whips out his spear to engage them. A bright attack light emerges from the staff as he strikes the monster close to him. Arata offers to help too, and as he tries to cook up his power, Kohaku urges him not to force himself because he is now a combat asset. He urges him to control his breathing to make space inside himself while letting the power naturally rise from his core. Arata decides to follow Kohaku's advice as he tries to concentrate on doing this. Just then, Arata manages to whip out a big sword made from soot, and he starts taking out the monsters with it. Kohaku is impressed by this, and he tells Arata that he has improved a little. Deep down, Kohaku can see that Arata's skill control and combat sense are bad, but he is slowly getting used to fighting. He also figures out that Toyoi is weird, but he can't complain because she is pretty useful at the moment. After taking out the magic beasts in the room, Kohaku proceeds to use his power to seal the tunnel. With the loophole sealed, Kohaku tells Arata that it is time they wipe out the magic beasts. Even though the tunnel is sealed, Arata is worried that they have not sealed all of the loopholes, since there are fewer magic beasts in the area. Kohaku then reveals that most of the magic beasts that use the tunnel have already moved, which is why blocking the tunnel was the top priority. However, in case they are wrong, Arata reveals that he has left soot markers. His soot soon spreads everywhere, and Arata tells Kohaku that he is feeling a strong magic beast presence above them. Arata suggests that they move upstairs because the feeling he is getting is not natural. He lets them know that the biggest concentration of magic beasts is in the open space above them. Kohaku is shocked to hear this, as he tells them that it might be the training facility. Moments later, they arrive at the headquarters training facility, and to their greatest surprise, there is a rift inside the headquarters. Kohaku is pissed when he sees this because they missed it thanks to the chaos. Magic beasts emerge from the rift, shocking Arata, who didn't expect this. Kohaku then reveals that the beasts are diverting attention from the huge demonic rift, using the fire and the underground as cover. Enraged, Kohaku attacks the magic beasts, and Arata joins him. As they take down the monsters, Kohaku figures out that the only solution is to find a way to close the rift as fast as they can. However, he is worried that if he leaves, the association will be in danger. In addition to this, he realizes that the rift is different from the usual ones, because it is big enough to spawn magic beasts. Kohaku starts racking his brain, wondering what Doju would do in this situation. Just then, Arata tells Kohaku that he is willing to go. Kohaku is shocked when he hears this because Arata is exhausted already, but he is still prepared to throw himself into danger without hesitation. Kohaku wonders what it is that is driving Arata this much. Kohaku then tells Arata that he is going too. Since Arata, who is a rogue slayer, is offering to risk himself, he cannot sit back either. Kohaku believes that the other slayers inside the building will handle whatever magic beasts come at them, as long as they are able to take out the nest first. With this, Arata motivates the team to step into the rift, while telling them that they are not allowed to lose to magic beasts of this caliber. Kohaku leads the charge and orders the two to follow him as they dive into the rift. Upon entering the rift, they find themselves in some sort of throne room. Kohaku admits that the whole area looks really creepy, and on the other hand, Arata is shocked to see that there was a magic beast giving orders from the shadows. Kohaku then tells the two that they are to finish the mission quickly and return because he has a responsibility to fulfill. As they walk deeper into the room, they notice that something feels very different. On the other hand, the Gold Slayers are engaging their different share of problems. Moments later, Kohaku tells the two that it is pretty weird that no monster has shown up since they arrived in this weird area. Kohaku then asks Arata to tell him what it is that drives him to fight. Arata is startled by the question, and while he is still trying to answer, Kohaku cuts in saying he, on the other hand, is fighting for Doju's sake. Kohaku says as long as Doju stands, the Slayers will endure the war against the magic beasts. However, he believes that Arata lacks all traces of refinement. Toyoi intentionally twists his words, telling Arata that Kohaku meant he is not his type. Kohaku quickly clears the air, telling Toyoi that she is misunderstanding his words. Kohaku tells Toyoi to watch Doju when he fights. He starts glazing the man, saying he commands his power like a river, and his seasoned technique wastes nothing. Kohaku continues by saying Doju's form is pure artistry, and he starts talking about how an ancient master painter would have turned the moment into a holy work if he witnessed it. Toyoi is not impressed by everything Kohaku is saying, but Kohaku believes that she is just a rude girl. After he is done glazing Doju, he tells Arata to feel the current of the power inside him. They soon arrive at a giant door, and the moment the door opens, they find themselves staring at a giant monster with human heads and an ugly, scary body. Just then, the beast fires off a laser from its body that hits Kohaku. Suddenly, Kohaku sees Doju lying on the ground with his body totally mutilated. Kohaku screams in pain as he watches the body of his mentor totally shattered. Unknown to him, he is currently in a state of illusion because Arata is on the outside, wondering what is wrong with Kohaku, who suddenly collapsed. Staring at the monster, Arata figures out that the laser shot from before is the monster's attack. At the same time, Toyoi is also screaming in pain as she holds her head in pain. Arata is still trying to get himself together when the monster hits him with a laser shot too. Suddenly, Arata's fear comes into play, as images of those he has failed to save start appearing in front of him, berating him for letting them die. Arata also gets images, calling him a failed slayer, saying he should have been the one to die. Arata crashes to his knees in tears as the emotional burden gets larger with every second that goes by. Meanwhile, the monster is enjoying itself as the team suffers in agony. Suddenly, something inside Arata clicks, and he realizes that he still has to fight even though he has failed numerous times. With sheer willpower, Arata gets back on his feet because he is determined to bring Aoi back later in the future, since he doesn't want a repeat of what happened to his brother. With his willpower and determination, he tries to tap into the power flowing inside him, just like Kohaku said. Just then, he is able to get his hands on Aoi's magic power, leaving him to wonder if he managed to get this thanks to the vassalization skill. The moment he realizes that he can use this, Arata starts going deeper to get more. The monster realizes that Arata is already coming back to his senses, and it frantically fires an attack at him. His attack hits, leaving a loud explosion. But when the smoke clears, Arata is perfectly safe behind the shield he was able to create using Aoi's power. Arata is surprised to see that he was actually able to tap into Aoi's power, which knocks everything away. With the shield protecting him against the monster's attack, Arata has the chance to cook up a soot attack. On the other hand, Kohaku has not broken free from the illusion, as he believes that Doju is truly dead. Suddenly, it dawns on him that Arata is planning to take on the monster all by himself. Disappointed in himself, he smacks his head into the ground to get himself back into his right senses. Thanks to this, he is able to return to his senses, and he stares at the boss monster disgustingly, promising to handle things for his mentor's sake. At this point, the monster is firing lasers at Arata, but he is able to block all thanks to the shield. The monster is pissed that everything he is doing is getting repelled by the shield. Suddenly, Arata senses danger behind him, and when he turns around he realizes that a part of the monster has split from the main body. This split part is now coming after him, but just as the clone is about to slash Arata, Toyoi's voice echoes through the room, telling the monster that it overestimated itself by creating clones of itself too quickly, which forced its illusion to wear off. The clone trying to get to Arata gets impaled by Toyoi's sharp claws, and she looks absolutely badass while doing this. With Toyoi back to her senses and ready to join the fight, Arata turns to Kohaku to check on him. Unknown to them, Kohaku is back on his feet and out of anger, he activates his ultimate skill, the Stone Gargantua, which is a giant body of armor. Kohaku's armor stands tall above the boss monster and its several clones. With a powerful punch, Kohaku takes out 4 clones at once, releasing an enormous power surge from his body. Even Arata is blown away by this, and he finally understands just how powerful Kohaku is. Kohaku also looks absolutely menacing, as if he is undergoing a personality change. Suddenly, the boss monster tries to take Arata out from behind, but Arata senses this and leaps out of the way before it can punch him. The boss monster ends up shattering the ground, and Arata uses the opportunity to attack it. However, his attack couldn't cut through the monster's head. Kohaku sees this and he tells Arata to stay sharp while also refining his magic power. Arata is confused by what Kohaku means when he tells him to refine his magic power, and Kohaku knows that Arata's journey is going to end in that very room if he can't surpass his limit. Following Kohaku's words, Arata closes his eyes to concentrate, and he is able to move past the distractions. In the end, Arata imbues his soot sword with Aoi's power to turn his blade into the glittering mist sword. With the new powered sword, Arata dashes toward the monster and in the blink of an eye cuts it in half, ultimately defeating the monster. Breathing heavily from this, he turns to look at Toyoi and Kohaku. Toyoi is shocked, while Kohaku has the look of a proud father on his face. He commends Arata, telling him that he just earned a pass mark. Exhausted from his last attack, Arata crashes to the ground, and Toyoi runs over to check on him. Kohaku, on the other hand, realizes that Arata's power matches the ones who awaken a golden orb, and this has him questioning why Arata is doing what he is doing. Later on, they return to the HQ and cleared out the monsters, thus protecting the association headquarters. Since the HQ is now safe, Kohaku figures out that what is next is the large-scale fissure. Meanwhile, in the rift, Doju and Xion are trying to locate the boss in the large forest. Xion complains about the filthy area, talking about how her clothes are already getting messed up. Doju mocks her, telling her that this is what she gets for dressing so indecently. But Xion doesn't really care. In fact, she takes out her anger on the environment by unleashing a powerful blast ahead to clear out a convenient path for them. Doju cannot believe just how dramatic the lady is. He remembers that 17 years ago, the boundary between the world and the magic rift grew dangerously thin, which was basically on the verge of collapse. Countless lives were lost when magic beasts poured out of the large-scale rift. Doju remembers that they were a bit late back then, but he is determined not to repeat the same mistake this time around. However, he is worried that something is wrong because the silence in the rift is not supposed to be. Xion lets him know that the monsters are probably setting up an ambush, and he agrees to this, urging Xion not to let her guard down. Moments later, they arrive at a large tree where they sense weird energies coming from, which shows that they have arrived at the right place. Xion is relieved that they have gotten to the right place, which saves the trouble of tracking down the beasts. With their observation, they realize that the monsters sitting in the tree are most likely A-ranked or higher. Xion talks about how eager she is to wrap things up and return home. Sitting in the tree are the false twins. They are Arum of the White Wings and Varuna of the Black Wings, and they look menacing. They are an A-rank beast according to the association standard regulation. The twins are surprised that Xion and Doju came to look for them, assuring the two that they are not going to leave the forest alive. The twins boast about how they easily wipe out the Silver Slayers, and they ask Doju and Xion how long they think they can last. The two then unleashed a powerful laser at the two Slayers. Realizing that the twins are underestimating them, Doju and Xion prepare to engage. A golden aura emerges from Doju's body as he tells the twins that gold is not just an extension of silver, and they are about to show them why they are called Golden Slayers. A golden armor appears around Doju's body, while Xion creates a powerful spherical attack blast. The attack from the twins hit Doju, but he tanks the attack relatively easily. The twins see this and start to panic, but refusing to be trashed upon, they fire another wave of laser attacks at the two. The attack this time is more numerous than before, but Doju blocks the attack, while Xion finally unleashes the blast she has been cooking for them. The false twins see the magnitude of the attack coming for them and automatically know that they are screwed. Doju is not surprised because he already knows that humans and beasts are the same. They both cannot look beyond their experience, and this is why they believed that the Gold Slayers are nothing. Unknown to them, the power of Golden Slayer exceeds reason because it is an overwhelming force that effortlessly surpasses their scale of reasoning. The twins watch in horror as Xion's overwhelming blast cooks them up and destroys everything in their range, alongside the giant tree they are sitting in. Once they have packed up their own side, Xian tells Doju that she wonders if the others are done with their own side too. Meanwhile, Ryo and Rei are going up against Ariel, the priest of vanity, and Balm, the war idol. Without stress, the two are able to wipe out the monsters just like Doju and Xian did. At the same time, Takuto easily defeats Lil and Vas, the twin phantoms of illusory sound. Takuto is disappointed that the person he really wants to face is not in the fissure, postponing their battle to the future. Soon afterward, Kohaku gets the call that Doju is returning to the headquarters, and he takes the news with great excitement. When the other Slayers also hear this, they jump up in celebration. With this, the attacks by the large-scale magic rift came to an end. The association later said the damage was kept to a minimum. However, the true objective of the magic beasts was not known. Everything is going so fine until something else arises from behind the association headquarters, and this is Takatora, wielding a divine weapon. Due to the effect of the divine weapon, one of his eyes has turned red with his right arm, looking like that of a beast. But he is still smiling because he is power-drunk already. As he descends from the sky, he rains fire on all the buildings around him. All alarms start going off, signaling a potential catastrophic damage to the city. Rei returns just to the guild in time to get the news from her attendant. Rei is surprised by what she is looking at because Takatora is busy wreaking havoc in the association headquarters. The attendant tells Rei that they can't reach the Seiwa Guild at the headquarters, and when she hears this, Rei becomes worried that Arata and Aoi are in danger. Without hesitation, she dashes toward the headquarters, hoping that the two are safe until she gets there. At the headquarters, Takatora is busy acting like a villain, unleashing several balls of fire, causing the civilian populace harm. Seeing how bad things have gotten, Arata tells Toyoi to keep the citizens safe. Kohaku takes a closer look at Takatora's hand, and he is shocked to see that he is currently holding a divine weapon. Kohaku berates the dude, telling him that a divine weapon isn't something a person chooses because it chooses its owner instead. Basically, the weapons have a will of their own, and they choose their wielder. Kohaku wonders how Takatora even got his hands on the weapon because the barrier around the armory shouldn't be breakable by someone like Takatora. Just then, Takatora lets out a huge laugh while claiming that he is the strongest. Suddenly, he screams out in pain, and a dark shadow emerges from his body. The shadow lunges at Arata and attacks him, but Arata is able to block the attack with his shield. Arata tries to clear his head of any form of distraction because he knows that he has a bunch of civilians that he has to protect. With a precise strike, he cuts the shadow in half, and Arata is willing to go beyond his limits as a slayer. At the same time, Kohaku and Toyoi take on Takatora with the intention of protecting the guild and the civilians. Moments later, Arata realizes that he is already at his limit because he has used too much power already. Sensing how weak he has become, Takatora lunges at him with a powerful blow. Arata knows his shield can no longer block the incoming attack, and he turns around to shield the kids and civilians from the incoming attack with his own body. He manages to reinforce his body with the shield, but the attack still hits so hard that Arata grits his teeth in pain, while suffering burns on his body too. Unfortunately for him, he has run out of magic power, and at this point it appears that a wave of pain is crashing into his body. Toyoi is also using everything she has to protect the civilians, while Kohaku is barely handling the monsters just so he can live up to his reputation as the number 2 of the Seiwa Guild. Moments later, Rei arrives on the scene, and she lets out a big smile when she realizes that the trio is still standing. She rushes over to check on them, but this is when she notices that the trio is totally exhausted after making sure that they evacuated everyone. Enraged, she tells them to leave the rest to her. Takatora is busy causing a rampage when a powerful blast suddenly hits him out of nowhere, sending him into the distance. Rei shows how pissed she is by assuring Takatora that she is not going to show him any mercy for what he did. Rei cannot believe that he stole a divine weapon and also stopped being human. Takatora frantically shoots a magic blast at Rei, but she easily tanks the attack while telling him that she is going to beat the living hell out of him. A large amount of energy blasts out from Rei's body, making her look totally different from the regular Rei. While they are returning to the headquarters, Doju tells Xion that Rei is the Golden Slayer with the strongest firepower, and Xion is shocked to hear this because she was expecting it to be Doju. Doju tells Xion that he might be stronger than Rei, but the moment she starts fighting alone, it is a completely different story. Xion is confused about what he means when he said alone, and he explains that as long as Rei doesn't have to worry about those around her, she is far stronger than all of the Golden Slayers. Doju mentions that Rei possesses the properties of both water and lightning. Because of this dangerous magic power, she holds back when fighting alongside others. Rei was basically branded a heretic, forcing her to walk a rough path. In the end, it turns out that she is the first irregular. Back on the battlefield, Kohaku suddenly regains consciousness, and when he looks into the distance, he sees Takatora and Rei going up against each other. Rei soon notices that Kohaku is awake, and she heaves a sigh of relief. She is impressed that Kohaku is good at adapting power into his body because she has been supplying the trio with a portion of her power. Kohaku wants to join her in fighting Takatora, but she urges him to pull back in the meantime. Kohaku wants to argue, but Rei lets him know that she is ordering him to back down. Kohaku finally agrees to back down, and Rei tells him to take the other two to safety, while she tries to restrain the rogue Takatora. Kohaku does as told, and he grabs the two, running away from the battlefield. Once they are in safety, Kohaku creates a healing pool for the two so that they can regain their magical power. On the other hand, Rei is disappointed in herself because she was entrusted with the guild, but she couldn't get Takatora under control, which is why he ended up the way he did. Rei is pissed at how things have turned out, and she concludes that she should have done everything alone from the start. Enraged at how Rei is trashing him around, Takatora screams out in anger, unleashing a barrage of ice swords at Rei. Rei creates a force field that blocks the incoming attack while most flies past him. Some of the swords get caught in the force field, and when Rei sees just how close she is to dying from the sword, she gets enraged. Holding onto the force field, Rei remembers her parents' encouragement, talking about how they are going to protect the city. Rei finally taps into her rage, and she unleashes her lightning power, easily shattering every attack coming at her. She gets into an attack stance and she shoots a lightning attack at Takatora, catching him in a lightning tornado. Takatora screams in pain as the lightning courses through his body, and Kohaku is shocked to see Rei wielding the two strongest gifts bestowed by the gods. However, this is a power that demands a high price from its user. When Rei was still younger, her classmates didn't want to get close to her, as they always believed that she was going to go berserk because she was an irregular. Just by staring at Rei, Kohaku knows that she must have walked a difficult path. With a hand signal, Rei cooks up another lightning attack that she shoots at Takatora. He screams out in horror as the lightning pierces through his body, but Rei continues punishing him by throwing him around in a tornado. Kohaku is terrified when he sees this because this just shows how crazy Rei's power is. Pissed about being trashed around, Takatora leaps closer to Rei, aiming to turn the battle into a close combat battle. However, Rei easily dodges his attack, and he grabs his deformed hand, telling him that he should forget about trying to outmatch him in close combat. Rei then cooks up a lightning attack in her right fist, and Takatora watches in fear as the punch hits him really hard. This releases a massive shockwave, and Takatora is sent flying into the distance. Takatora crashes into the ground, but he still tries to get back on his feet, and Rei is shocked to see this. She realizes that the divine weapon is no joke, but even with the danger in front of her, she concludes that she has to do everything all by herself. She remembers holding her mother's body in her hands, while also blaming herself for every pain everyone close to her has felt. Since Takatora is trying to stay stubborn, Rei tells him that she is going to end him. Just then, Kohaku notices that the water on the ground is moving, leaving him to wonder what is happening. As she prepares to fire the powerful shot, she knows that she is going to be vulnerable for a while, but at the same time, she has no choice but to use it, while hoping that Takatora doesn't die. Just then, Rei fires off a powerful lightning shot that looks nuclear. With no escape route, Takatora gets hit, unleashing a nuclear explosion that hits Takatora really hard. Kohaku is shocked when he sees this because he can't believe that he just witnessed Rei fire off a hydrogen bomb with precise accuracy. After this, Rei finally descends to the ground, and just as she expected, she falls to her knees in exhaustion. Kohaku rushes over to check on her, but she manages to get on her feet, assuring Kohaku that she is fine, even though she looks totally drained. Just then, she looks into the distance to see the people celebrating her victory over Takatora. This leaves a smile on her face, and just as she is still thinking about returning home to have a barbecue because she has worked way too much, a sword pierces her from behind. She screams out in pain and shock. When she turns to look at her attacker, it turns out to be Takatora, whom they assumed was dead. Rei crashes to the ground with blood pouring out of her mouth and a hole in her chest. Kohaku rushes toward Rei, scared that she is about to die. Rei, on the other hand, is disappointed in herself because she lets her guard down by misjudging his strength, which is why she is down on the ground. Rei believes that she is going to die, but she believes that she did her best with tears streaming down her face. Takatora starts laughing like a maniac while telling Rei that she belongs to him. He raises his sword, ready to cut Rei down, but Aoi appears out of nowhere to grab his hand. Rei coughs up blood while berating Aoi for putting herself at risk. However, she lets Rei know that she is not alone. Annoyed, Takatora slaps Aoi off, and when the Slayers in the area see this, they all come together with the sole intention of protecting Rei, who fought really hard. Rei watches as they all put their lives at risk to protect her because they believe she is the only hope that they have. Rei wishes that they could just run away because she doesn't want anyone to die because of her again. Kohaku kneels beside Rei to try to heal her with his power. As she slowly fades, she wishes that someone would show up to help her. Takatora is having fun when Arata suddenly appears out of nowhere and grabs him by the head. Within the blink of an eye, Takatora finds himself flying into the distance, and by the time he lands, a ton of swords made from soot impale his body. However, Takatora's pride blinds him so hard that he believes that Arata is no match for him. Arata simply unleashes another wave of attack at him, leaving a loud explosion that knocks Takatora to the ground, while Arata tells him to shut his mouth. Arata looks totally different with a horn growing out of his head, and his appearance shocks Rei. Takatora watches in horror, trying to understand why Arata looks different. Minutes earlier, Arata had heard a voice in his head, and he suddenly found himself in a strange space. Arata is disappointed in himself that he passed out from Takatora's attacks. Just then, he sees a man in chains, and the moment the man realizes that Rei can finally see and hear him, he lets out a loud laugh. Scared, Arata whips out his sword, demanding to know who he is. The dude then tells Arata to calm down, while revealing that his true name is Regnus, and he assures Rei that he is going to tell him why he granted him the power that he is currently using. Instead of hearing what the dude has to say, Arata just cuts him in half. Regnus cannot believe how impulsive Arata is, and Arata screams at him to get him out of the strange space that he is. Regnus tells Arata that the sword he is using and the power he is wielding are both his because he gave them to him. Arata is shocked to hear this, and Regnus tells him that he has to understand what he has to do because he is the long-awaited heretic. Arata is confused when he hears this because he doesn't understand a word of whatever the dude is saying. Regnus then tells Arata that the power he wields is forbidden, which is why he is a heretic. Regnus tells him that he can use the power to steal without reason and take whatever he wants. Annoyed by this, Arata cuts Regnus's head again, telling him that he has a ton of things that he would like to ask him, but he doesn't actually have the time at this point. Arata tells Regnus to give him more power, since he is the owner of the power. Seeing how Arata is grabbing his collar chain, Regnus commends him, telling him that he's got the guts. Regnus adds that Arata is no longer the crybaby that he once was. Regnus tells Arata that he might say no to his request, but Arata lets him know that he is pretty sure that Regnus will remain locked away for eternity if he doesn't do something about it. Regnus is impressed at how smart Arata is, and he tells him that he can give him 1 minute to grasp the core of his power. Now in reality, Arata finally understands why his form is different, and this is thanks to Regnus overshooting his ability. However, Takatora doesn't think Arata still has a chance against him, even though his form is different from usual. He lunges at Arata, but Arata effortlessly creates a bunch of shields to surround himself to block his attack. Arata then returns the favor by landing a blow on Takatora's chest that sends him flying into the distance. Before Takatora knows it, he is pinned to the ground with numerous swords hanging off his back. Even at this, Takatora believes that it is not over yet, as he doesn't want to think of the possibility of him losing to someone like Arata. Takatora then decides to attack Toyoi and the others, but before he can get to them, Toyoi unleashes a powerful skill, Black Male Beast, to push Takatora back. Takatora is shocked to see this, as he doesn't expect Toyoi to have this much power. Takatora starts raging, talking about how he is from the Goto conglomerate, and he also has a divine sword in his hand. He talks about how he replaced the 5 kings and ruled because he was the strongest. However, Arata reminds him how he stole someone else's orb and even turned his brother into a magic beast. Arata tells Takatora that he is a monster worse than a magic beast because he even stole a divine sword. With all of these numerous atrocities, Arata asks Takatora how he wants to die. The pressure from Arata's voice is so overwhelming that even Rei can feel it. Blinded by pride, Takatora tells Arata that he has no intention of dying to people like Arata. Takatora starts talking about how he is a golden slayer, and he tries to unleash a powerful energy from his body, but suddenly, blood starts to shoot out of his body. When Arata sees this, he finally understands that Takatora's body can't endure the orb's power because it was never his. In fact, Takatora had nothing to begin with, and when Takatora realizes that he is screwed, he makes a run for it. However, Arata casually opens a rift, shocking Kohaku. Takatora comes to a halt when the rift appears in front of him, but Arata's hand emerges from the rift, and he grabs Takatora's head into the rift. Takatora looks absolutely scary as he tells Takatora to stop running. Arata teases Takatora, asking him what he thinks would happen if the rift closes just as it is. Takatora starts crying because he knows that this means death, as his head would be completely chopped off. Just as Arata is about to go through with this, Toyoi grabs him from behind, telling him not to lose himself. She lets him know that he will never be able to forgive himself if he goes through with it. Arata immediately pauses when Toyoi's voice hits hard in his head. Arata ends up closing the rift on Takatora's arm, chopping off his right arm, causing the dude to scream in pain. After taking Takatora out of the equation, Arata finally crashes out in exhaustion. With this, the series of disturbances that began with the large-scale rift was put to an end, and Goto Takatora was imprisoned in the underground dungeon. He was also stripped of his Slayer qualification, thus sentencing himself to a life where he will never get to see the main stage again. After this, Arata also found it hard to contact Regnus, the owner of the power, and he also couldn't get the power to function the way it did the last time. Arata had a lot to ask, but even with all of these, he had a bigger problem to think about, which was his court hearing. At the Irregular Treatment Council, Arata is asked to step forward to answer his case. Doju lets him know that the council cannot overlook his violation of the commandments and his jailbreak from the underground cell. With all of these put into account, Doju tells Arata that they are going to decide his fate. Standing beside him is Toyoi, who has a gag to cover her mouth. Sitting at the hearing are the Gold Slayers and other Slayers who are members of the council. Doju talks about how Arata's power went so far as to create even a small-scale magic rift, and he believes that such a rampage might escalate into a huge calamity, which could lead the Slayers to ruin. Because of this, Doju tells the Slayers present in the room that he would like to hear their opinions on this. Rei is the first to stand up, telling the room that the rampage is her responsibility because supervision lies with her. She also adds that they wouldn't have been able to stop Takatora without Arata. Ryo supports her, saying Arata might be a heretic, but it was thanks to him that they were able to defeat loads of monsters. He adds that he has fought alongside Arata in the past, and he is pretty sure that he knows Arata well enough. Takuto chimes in on the conversation, saying they cannot ignore the whole situation surrounding Arata, even though they don't really know the source of his power. He suggests that they just place Arata under close surveillance, and Doju asks Shion if she has anything to add to the case. Shion finally speaks up, saying she is surprised that Arata was fighting without even getting paid, leaving her to wonder why he is a Slayer in the first place. Doju cannot believe that this is all Shion has to contribute, and he just sighs before moving past her. Arata himself speaks up, saying he might not understand his power, and it is obviously true that he went berserk, but he assures them that he will do it over again if he gets the chance. Just then, one of the conservatives stood up to scream at Arata, telling him not to screw with them. The man talks about how Arata's whole existence is absurd, and even the fact that he now has a magic beast as his subordinate. He talks about how plenty of disasters have been caused by irregular Slayers in the past. Reo is not surprised to hear this, since the conservatives are known as the Orb Fundamentalists. However, Doju has no choice but to hear them speak, since they hold a fair amount of influence. The rest of the conservatives start screaming out, suggesting that they get rid of Arata because he is a demonic one. Different accusations start flying out from the conservative camp. Reo is surprised that they are louder than usual, and Rei tells him that those who didn't witness Arata do what he did will only see him as a threat to society. Suddenly, a voice echoes from among the conservative camp, and this is Kamigari's voice. He tells his peers to shut their mouths, and they are all shocked to see this, since he is the head of the conservatives. Kamigari finally speaks his mind, saying it is true that Arata conspired with the Navy Guildmaster to escape the cell, and he even possesses an unknown power. However, he lets them know that he saw how Arata used his body to shield people, even though he was already tired and drained of his mana. Kamigari asks his peers who they would call a Slayer if not someone like Arata, who protects people instead of himself. Kamigari further screams at his comrades, telling them that they couldn't do anything when Takatora went on a rampage. Surprisingly, Kamigari tells Doju that he should punish him if he is looking for someone to punish. Kamigari tells Doju that he and the other guards were the ones who abandoned their posts. Just then, the citizens present on the scene start to vouch for Arata, telling Doju that he risked his life to save them. They talk about how Arata was desperately fighting during the assault on the association, even though he was bleeding and battered. They urge Doju to acknowledge Arata because he is a true Slayer since he fought for the citizens. After hearing everything they have to contribute, Doju tells them that he is going to accept the answer everyone has shown. Since there are no objections, Doju proceeds to make Arata an official Slayer of the bronze rank. Doju tells him that he is going to live under the protection of the Navy Guild, and Rei heaves a sigh of relief because everything worked out in the end. Kamigari walks past Rei, telling her that he only did what he did because Arata saved his sister's life, and he doesn't like being in someone else's debt. Doju tells Arata to continue fighting for the people as a Slayer, and show them his resolve and his achievements. However, he lets him know that if he ever forgets this, the association will pass judgment on him once more. Once everyone has agreed to this, Doju decides to shift his attention to Ryo and Rei, who are responsible for breaking Arata out of prison and even sends him to the front lines without permission. Soon afterward, Arata finally leaves the hearing, and later on, he gets his Slayer badge. Meanwhile, Toyoi is staying over at Rei's. Even though Arata never wanted the badge, he had no choice but to just take it like that. By the time he returns home, he finds a ton of utility bills waiting for him in the locker. And this is when he finally thanks his stars that he became a Slayer because there is no way he would have been able to pay his bills. Arata is still looking through the envelopes when a girl suddenly jumps on him from the side. The silver-haired girl tells Arata that she has been waiting for him, and she looks absolutely excited to see Arata. While Arata is totally confused about who she is, she grabs him and asks him if he is going to allow her to dissect him. She looks like a creep as she urges Arata to show her his insides. Arata freaks out and shoots her away with his soot power, but this just excites the girl even further. She whips out surgical equipment as she drools in the mouth, telling Arata that she can't wait to get inside him. She lunges at him again, but before she can reach him, she gets knocked down by Rei's power. Fortunately for Arata, Rei showed up just in time because she was already expecting something like this to happen. Rei restrains the girl upside down, and she asks Rei if she didn't hear the information passed down from Doju. Rei assures her that she is aware, and this is all about them going to the research institute the next day. When Akira hears them talk about the research institute, he figures out who the girl is. Apparently, she is the director of the Slayer Research Institute, and her name is Aki Kaibo. The following day, Arata finds himself in Aki's lab answering her questions. Aki freaks out when she hears how he created a fissure and even got himself to use Regnus's power. Aki immediately becomes interested in whatever is going on inside Arata's body. Arata tells her that a lot has happened, which he has not even sorted out yet, but he has various things planned out. However, Aki tells him that she cannot hold back anymore and restrains him so she can get undiluted access to his body. Arata cannot believe what is happening to him, and he concludes that he shouldn't have told Aki about his powers. Just then, Aki activates her skill, which is called the virtual autopsy. It is a non-invasive dissection using the water mirror scalpel, which allows dissection without damaging the subject's body. Arata is still freaking out when Rei shows up, telling him that Aki might be a pain to deal with, but her skill is the real deal. Rei assures Arata that he can trust Aki when it comes to this. In fact, Rei lets Arata know that she was scared of Aki the first time too. Arata then demands to know what type of skill Aki has because this is the first time he has seen this type of skill from a Slayer in the past. Aki, on the other hand, is totally blown away by what she is staring at in Arata's body. She reveals that Arata's body structure is totally different from that of a normal Slayer. Aki says Arata has the same origin as a Magai because the traits are similar to those of a Magai. Arata then mentions that he still doesn't know anything, but he feels that the power is settling into his body far more than before. Aki then tells Arata that his body is the key to opening the door to the demon realm. Arata is shocked to hear this, as he has no idea what they mean by this. Aki then asks him if he knows what a magic rift is. Arata explains that it is a crack where dark souls come out, which is basically like a dungeon that disappears once one defeats the boss inside. Aki confirms this, saying it is like a limited-time dungeon, but she tells him that there are structures inside that clearly show altered history, and some Magai can speak human language. She mentions that there are some who even form parties with specific goals. This means that they are not just encountering rifts, but proof that they have their own world. Aki tells Arata that the magic rift is merely a passageway for dark souls coming from the demon realm. Aki confesses that they don't know much about this yet because everything she is saying is based on a hypothesis. Aki lets Arata know that there is a way to go from the magic rift into the demon realm, and he needs to find this route. Basically, the clue to the origin of the magic rifts lies within the demon realm itself. Arata finally understands that he is expected to track down the dude residing in the demon realm. Aki then tells Arata that there is one more thing about his body that is bothering her. She mentions that in his astral body and chi circulation she saw the color of someone other than himself. She believes that it is separate from Regnus, and this shocks Arata. However, Aki tells Arata that she doesn't know much about this, since he is the first of his kind that she will be dealing with. Rei then urges Arata to be careful because even if they figure out a way, there is no Slayer that has ever gone to the demon realm before. Rei says they have no idea what resides in the demon realm, or even if his existence will be allowed in the demon realm. Arata assures them that he is aware of the danger, but he believes that if he doesn't go to the demon realm anytime soon, nothing will change. Aki lets Arata know that she knows where he is coming from, but tells him that they will not be struggling if they know the method. Nonetheless, Arata tells the two that he doesn't have the time to play around, and in addition, there is only one way to find out how to get to the demon realm. Aki immediately asks him what he means by this, and Arata replies that he has to force the answer out of Regnus. Arata says he has been thinking about it, and it appears that Regnus needs him, which is going to be a problem if he actually dies. Arata asks Aki if he can perform medical treatment and surgery, and Aki reveals that she was the one who operated on Rei's wounds. The moment Arata hears this, he concludes that he can try out his plan. Without hesitation, he pushes his sword into his neck, and he passes out immediately. Without wasting time, he finds himself in Regnus's space again. Regnus cannot believe how much of an idiot Arata is, and Arata teases him, saying he was sure he would come out because he worries a lot. Regnus berates Arata, saying it is not his will, but since they have come together to talk again, he agrees that Arata's idea wasn't bad. Regnus is surprised that Arata is planning to go to the demon realm, and Arata urges Regnus to tell him, since it will also be good for him. Regnus lets Arata know that there are other things he has to do, and in addition, he is still very weak. Arata is confused by what he means when he says there are other things to do, and Regnus tells him that he cannot say because there is a restriction placed on him. Although he tells Arata that there is no way he is letting a weakling like him go to the demon realm. Arata angrily whips out his weapon, saying he is tired of how Regnus does things. Arata says he is going to the demon realm to stop the rifts, and he doesn't care what means he has to use to get there. Regnus laughs when he hears this, commending Arata for having a big mouth on his head. Nonetheless, he decides to play with Arata. He raises one of his fingers, and a dark cloud erupts in the space, causing Arata to start shaking. Regnus reveals that he can only use just about one hand, and Arata is already shaking from this. Even though it is going to be a waste if he dies, Regnus lets him know that he has no choice but to do this. Since Arata is serious about risking his life, Regnus tells him to show him everything he has in him right there and then. Arata is pissed about this, but he prepares himself to fight Regnus. Regnus is excited by this as he urges Arata to show him proof of his own power. Arata lunges at him, telling him to shut his mouth and tell him what he needs to know. Regnus laughs at him because he is desperate to know how to go to the demon realm. Just then, the chains around his neck turn red, and Regnus tells Arata that if he wants to hear how to get to the demon realm, he has to break the restriction on him. Arata fires a powerful blast at him, but it gets blocked relatively easily. Regnus mocks him, asking him if this is all he has to offer, and he tells him that he is going to die right there if he doesn't up his game. Regnus assures Arata that he has no intention of killing him, but he obviously can't hold back since it is part of the restriction. Arata is tired of hearing the dude talk about restriction, calling him a pitiful dude, and Regnus agrees that he is actually shameless. Regnus tells Arata to show him his power if he doesn't want to die. Before Arata knows what is happening, he gets overwhelmed by Regnus' strength. He gets pushed to the ground with blood gushing out of his body. Arata finally realizes just how strong Regnus is because with just one arm, he is completely on a different level. Just one hit puts Arata in a hurtful position that feels like his body is about to shatter into pieces. Regnus is disappointed when he sees just how badly he is coping, and he urges him to do better. Arata assures Regnus that he is not going to give up because what he is currently suffering is not up to what his brother suffered. Regnus is impressed that Arata is not ready to give up, and he explains to him that soot is what remains at the very end, even after being burned by the fires of hell. Regnus assures Arata that he has also given him the same power as that, urging him to fight really hard. Regnus tries to overshadow Arata with his power, but Arata easily cuts down the blast. Arata tells Regnus that he figured out that they are using the same power, so he just hijacked it. He then unleashes a barrage of soot weapons at Regnus, and Regnus compliments his wisdom. However, he lets him know that he can do what he did and even better than him. Regnus easily blocks his attacks while teasing him and asking if he has run out of moves. Regnus fires a bunch of blades at Arata, but puts up the water shield to block the attack. He manages to do this, but one of the blades pierces the shield and cuts Arata on the shoulder. Just then, Arata notices something important, but Regnus just mocks him, asking him if this is all he can do. He continues taunting him, urging him to show him something good. Arata then whips out his sword again, but Regnus is not impressed as he believes that all Arata is good at is swinging his power around. Arata is tired of hearing the dude ramble, and he dashes toward him while disrupting his visibility with soot. Regnus is not impressed as he believes that Arata is just trying to catch him off guard with cheap tricks. Regnus remains calm as a ton of weapons fly toward him. He tells Arata that it doesn't matter how many copies he makes, but suddenly he starts to regret his words as Arata appears in front of him. Regnus still believes that there is nothing Arata can do to him, but Arata hits the chains around his body with the sword, which is imbued with Aoi's water power. This immediately shatters the chains, shocking Regnus to his bones. Arata is excited to have pulled this off, and just as he suspected, Regnus's control over soot doesn't work on the power of water. In addition, he figured out that the chains are the restriction. Regnus laughs out loud when he realizes that Arata mixed the water power and used everything else as a decoy. Suddenly, Arata notices that his arm is getting overwhelmed with soot, and Regnus tells him that this is a chance for him to absorb all the power he can so he can become stronger. Regnus lets him know that it is up to him to draw out the true power of the soot. Meanwhile, on the outside, Aki is done repairing the damaged tissue on Arata's neck, and they are just waiting for him to wake up. At this point, Rei is already worried because it's been hours already. Suddenly, Arata jerks back to life, screaming as if he saw a ghost. Rei rushes over to check on him, but he boldly tells her that he is fine and his wounds don't even hurt. He is about to continue talking when Rei slaps him in the mouth. Aki is shocked, and Arata is stunned by Rei's sudden action. Rei yells at him, telling him to stop acting like no one would be sad if he dies. In addition, she lets him know that Aoi might actually die if he dies too. Arata realizes that Rei is coming from a place of care, and he apologizes for being so insensitive. Rei then tells Arata never to make her worry like that again, since he is a member of her guild. Arata agrees to be a good boy, but suddenly the cheek where Rei slapped him starts to hurt, and he is forced to scream out in agony. Rei casually tells him that he should never think her slap is just a normal slap. Nonetheless, Arata is happy to inform the two that he was able to get the information he wanted out of Regnus. Soon afterward, Arata and Rei meet with the other Gold Slayers to tell them the information he was able to get from Regnus. Reo is skeptical about the whole thing, asking the group if they can really trust Regnus's words because he doesn't see any reason why he would bother telling them a big secret like that. Arata lets them know that Regnus isn't lying, and Rei backs him up, saying she doesn't know how Arata was able to force the info out of Regnus, but Arata actually put himself in danger to uncover the secret. Takuto, on the other hand, is tired of the suspense, and he asks them what the method is. Arata finally speaks up, revealing that the path to the Demon Realm is defeating the boss inside an S-rank magic rift. After defeating the boss, he is expected to create a rift of his own and use that to cross over to the other side. Takuto is really blown away by this, as he has always been interested in Arata's powers. However, Doju is worried, since an S-rank rift is not something to be joked with. He explains that if an A rank has the power equal to a nation's army, it means an S rank is nothing but a disaster-class threat. Apparently, only a few S-rank rifts have been recorded in history, which shows just how dangerous they are. After hearing this, Ryo concludes that pulling off a mission like that is basically a fantasy. Even though they don't know when one will show up, Arata is fired up. Ryo then tells them that the real issue is not about when an S-rank rift will show up, but it all depends on Arata's strength. Ryo lets him know that he has no chance against an S-rank opponent. It turns out that whenever an S-rank rift shows up, at least 2 Golden Slayers are requested to take on the mission to clear it. As for the Bronze and Silver-ranked Slayers, their survivability rate is 0. Even with what he just heard, Arata remains dedicated to the fact that he is going to make it to the Demon Realm no matter what. Arata says he wants the days of fearing rifts to be over. Doju agrees with him, saying for the first time the Slayers might actually go on the offensive instead of always waiting around for the rifts to surprise them. However, there is only one problem, and this is Arata getting stronger. Shion immediately suggests that Arata get stronger by participating in the Dead Minute trial, assuring him that she is going to be his opponent. Rei is shocked to hear this, since there's never been someone who has attempted this against a gold rank. Ryo, on the other hand, is not worried because he believes that this will help Arata prepare well against whatever battle he comes across in the S-rank rift. While they are all arguing about this, Arata has no idea what they mean by the Dead Minute trial. Doju then tells him that it is an extreme survival test employed when there is a request to subjugate a magic rift ranked higher than one's level. Since Arata is planning to enter an S-rank rift, Doju believes that this is something he can definitely take on. The Dead Minute trial is basically a test where one must survive against 3 higher-ranking Slayers for 1 minute to survive the minimum mission requirement of survival. Since they don't know when an S-rank rift will appear, Doju believes that they need to prepare so as not to miss the chance when it finally does. Even though the whole test is dangerous, Arata doesn't mind taking it. Shortly afterward, they carry out the test, and Arata lasts only 10 seconds before being knocked out by a combination of attacks from Doju, Takuto, and Shion. Later on at the Navy Guild, Rei gets into her training outfit and tells Arata that he has been fighting in his own style, but it is time she teaches him something else. She assures him that she is going to hammer the fundamentals of everything he needs to know into him. Instead of being scared, Arata is fired up by this. Rei then explains to him that the most important thing for a skill is the image, which has to be clear, precise, distinct, and razor sharp. Rei continues to explain in babyish terms so that Arata can get what she is trying to say, but he looks totally lost. After she is done with the theoretical explanation, she tells him to face the wall of water and perform 10,000 basic skills. She lets him know that he is going to get a massive return if he does it quite well. Arata and Toyoi then face the wall to start unleashing attacks at it. Hours later, the two finally finished with the requested number, but they were already panting like 30 dogs. Just when they think it is over, Rei shows up, telling them that they have to do 20,000 more, shocking them. Rei lets them know that they only get started when they feel it is already over. Some more hours later, the two are totally exhausted and they crash to the ground, finding it hard to even lift their arms. Suddenly, the wall of water comes crashing down, forcing Arata to react quickly to take down the water. Arata is surprised that he was still able to activate a skill purely on reflex, even though he believed that he was totally exhausted. Rei is impressed by this as she explains to him that what he just did is what decides life or death. Later on, Arata heads to the Lion Flame Guild, and Rio lets him know that he is about to cook him because he was holding back the last time. With all the excitement in the world, Rio reveals that the special training that they are about to begin is Scorching Endurance, the Inferno Hell. Arata has no idea what he means by this until the walls of the room are set on fire, and Rio tells him that he would have to learn the basics of being a slayer inside this very room. There is also a table in front that has a bunch of books on it, and this is when Arata realizes that he is in a lecture room. Rio tells Arata that the purpose of the training is to ensure he can maintain his composure even in extreme situations and remain capable of analysis and thought. He urges Arata to burn with a cool heart, and Arata is literally sweating his body off just by reading in such a hot room. Whenever Arata is about to say he is tired or exhausted, Rio will scream at him to keep his mouth shut and focus on the training. Rio keeps edging him on to burn hotter, also boiling his blood while staying calm. Several hours later, Arata finally passes out, and Rio compliments him, saying he has nothing else to teach him. Rio believes that Arata has finally acquired clear thinking and fiery calmness under extreme conditions. Arata, sweating like a goat, can't believe that this is all the training he got. Just a day before the Def Minute trial retest, Arata is seen training in the woods. Meanwhile, he is being watched by a suspicious, shadowy figure. The next day, Arata reports to the field where he is to take the test, and Doju lets him know that he is not going to be allowed to escort them into the S-rank rift if he fails the test. Just then, the retest begins, and Arata makes the first move by dashing toward the trio. He knows that he only lasted seconds in the last test, but this time around, he is prepared to give it his all. He unleashes a massive wave of soot to reduce visibility, and Takuto realizes that he is trying to force them to be careful so they don't take each other with friendly fire. After firing off a blast to clear the soot in front, Takuto realizes that Arata set a double trap for them. Takuto finds himself stuck in a muddy area, leaving him impressed. Doju, on the other hand, has gone on the offensive as he tries to take Arata down with his skill. However, Doju used this same skill the last time, and this time around, he is already prepared. With little effort, he is able to counter the skill, and when Doju sees this, he is impressed and shocked at the same time. This basically shows how fast Arata adapts to what he sees and fights. Since Arata is in the air, Shion believes it will be easy for her to take him down and fires a lightning wave at him, which leaves a big explosion. However, when the explosion clears, they realize that it was a dummy that got hit and not the real Arata. Arata remains in the air, thinking about how he is going to use everything they have taught him up until that point. With the trio in his sights, Arata activates a skill, Burst Cannon, and unleashes a cannon of soot on the trio. Takuto is impressed by Arata's momentum, but he believes that this is the end for him. The trio unleashes their skills at the same time, releasing a massive explosion. At this point, they just hit the 40-second mark in the test, and Rio believes that it is a big improvement. But it is still a failure in the end. However, they are all left in shock when the explosion clears off, and instead of seeing a charred Arata, what they see is a rift in the air. By the time they realize what is going on, Arata has appeared behind them. His right arm is glowing dark with soot just like a demon's, and he is sweating from having pushed himself beyond his limits. It turns out that the training he got from both Rei and Rio actually worked well. Just when he is about to rest, the trio comes at him at the same time, aiming to finish him off. But Arata easily vanishes this time around using another rift. Doju is shocked when he sees this, and he realizes that Arata was able to acquire a new technique and even applied it during the battle. Shion agrees with him, saying Arata's growth rate is fascinating. Even Takuto chimes in, saying he is impressed at how the dude is trying to play them like kids. Before they know it, the battle has lasted for over 10 minutes, and they are still going. Rei is impressed to see this because it appears that the trio is having so much fun on the battlefield. 32 minutes after the test started, Arata finally gets knocked down, and Doju lets him know that he passed with flying colors. He adds that it's been a long time since they enjoyed themselves this much, and Arata provided them with that opportunity. Arata replies with a fist bump because he is glad that he is finally going to the demon realm. However, Shion urges him not to get too comfortable because letting his guard down is frowned upon. Suddenly, the strange, shadowy figure from the day before shows up on Arata's shoulders. This leaves everyone surprised because they have no idea what this creature is. Rio concludes that he can't be surprised anymore because his skill has a lot to show them just yet. Arata later heads to the Slayer Research Institute, where Aki reminds him about the residue someone else left inside him. Aki lets him know that the little shadowy figure is the residue, and it took shape through his power. Arata confesses that whenever he looks at the little dude, he feels some sense of reassurance and calmness. Aki tells him that the little dude was just born, but she is pretty sure that he is going to grow and change. She then suggests that Arata give the creature a name, and he decides to go with Piggy. With all of these out of the way, Rei suggests that they head out to have fun. To his surprise, Everyone he knows, including the Golden Slayers, are present at the fun party. Ryo tells Arata that they are holding the party to celebrate that he passed his exam. Shion soon comes into the conversation, acting all sweet with Arata while asking him if he would like to be with her as an older sister. However, Rei quickly ruins whatever plan she has by coming in between them. Rei tells Shion that she can't be regarded as an elder sister at her age, but Shion retorts, reminding Rei that she was the shameless one who hugged Arata in public. The tension continues between the two, while the others are busy having fun. Later on, Doju tells Arata that they need to decide who will escort him into the S-rank rift when it finally shows up. He lets him know that only one person would be able to follow him. Since he is the one risking his life, he will be the one to choose who accompanies him into the S-rank rift too. Without wasting time, the Golden Slayers start to entice Arata, trying to get him to pick them. Shion urges him to pick her so she can act the older sister role for him, while Ryo reminds him of all the favors he's done for him. Even Doju and Rei are not behind in trying to convince him to pick them. Arata then tells the group that he has already made up his mind, and without hesitation, he tells them who he wants as his partner. After the party, everyone heads to their homes, and Arata thanks Rei for inviting him. Rei lets him know that it was pretty easy since everyone was interested in him after all. Arata confesses that being around everyone made it seem like he finally has a family of his own. He mentions that his brother was the only family he had. He has now decided that he has to be stronger to protect those who are important to him. Moments later, Arata reminds Rei that she is going in the wrong direction, and no one can really blame her, since she has a poor sense of direction. With this, Arata passed the test, and they spent the next few weeks waiting for an S-rank rift to show up. But unknown to them, something interesting happened in Takatora's cell, as he received an invitation from a strange individual from the demon realm. Months later, an S-rank magic rift finally appears, and Arata finally gets the chance he has been waiting for. Doju tells Arata that everyone is counting on him to come through. As he stands in front of the rift ready to go in, Takuto shows up, telling Arata to do everything in his power not to die. From the interaction between the two, it appears that Takuto is his escort into the S-rank magic rift.